I'd like to call this board meeting to order. It's the regular board meeting of the 1416th regular board meeting of Modesto City Schools, the Board of Education. So I'll call the meeting to order. In closed session, the board gave direction to legal counsel. If you would join me for a moment of silence. And in this moment, I would think of two community members that have recently passed this week, Pastor James Anderson and Judge John Whiteside, as we think about their families. Thank you. Continue standing, and we will join each other in the pledge, and they move the flag. So I pledge allegiance to the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, and announcements. Do we have any announcements, Dr. Noguchi?
I'm not aware of any announcements, except that I would like to say it has been an honor and a privilege to meet the number of community members and parents, a few students this past week or so as I've transitioned into Modesto City Schools. I can tell this year is going to be an absolutely exciting year, and I look forward to working with the board moving forward. And again, thank you.
Thank you. And it should be announced that this is the first meeting for our new superintendent, Dr. Sarah Noguchi. Welcome. We're excited to have you here. And our first our July meeting, so these are usually quieter than most. So we look forward to an exciting school year. All right. This takes us, yes, well, go ahead. Oh, and then we probably need to do a translation announcement. We have Ms. Flores here today. If anybody needs translation services, could you announce that you're here in Spanish? If you have a microphone.
Mi nombre es Ruth Flores, estoy aquí para la interpretación. Si alguien necesita interpretación, estoy a sus órdenes.
Thank you. So if anyone needs any services, please see her at the desk. All right, this takes us down to A6, which is approval of consent agenda. I have a conflict to declare on item C8. This is a conflict based on Government Code Section 1090, but falls under the exception of Government Code Section 1091B for family business expense. And then also I have a conflict to declare on E13, number 1, page 1, number 18. That is a relative. Is there anyone have any further comments or anything on consent agenda? Oh, okay, your light isn't light. Our lights are not working, so just we'll use hands. So Trustee Brown.
I would like to request that we pull item C3 off of consent. Put on the regular agenda, please.
Okay. Then could we put it in between items 11 and 12? Or do you want to do it earlier?
I'd rather do it early.
Okay, then let's do it between 8 and 9. And it's C3?
Yes, please.
Okay. So C3 will now be new 8A. And then Trustee Marks had another request for regarding the consent agenda.
To move item D2, revision of the passport to literature lists, grades 7 through 12, to discussion action item. And it could go after Trustee Brown's.
So could we make that 8B?
Yes.
All right, so we have 8A and 8B. So, all right, so we're looking for a motion for approval. Yes?
Can I say thank you about the consent agenda?
Yeah.
I just wanted to thank Ms. Mack and the other cabinet members who helped me understand I think it's C14, because I had questions about the agreement with Modesto Junior College. And then they pointed out that it was actually related to Elliott, which is, to me, worth highlighting in the sense that it's another service that we offer those students over there that should be highlighted. And thank you for walking me through that.
Are there any members of the public that wish to speak on an item on the consent agenda? Seeing none. All right. Are there any questions or comments from the board on the consent agenda?
I have
Yeah.
a question.
Yes.
It was D what? D2?
It's D2. All right. Okay, so we're looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda minus C8 and E13, page 1, number 18. And then I'll excuse myself. And so I'm looking for a motion for all of that, and minus items C3 and D2, because we'll take those out to discussion. So is there a motion?
I'll move approval.
Okay, so there's been moved by trustee Marks and seconded by trustee Walker. All those in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Aye. I will turn the dais over to Mr. Walker.
Okay. Where's my numbers at? So we're looking for a motion to approve consent agenda item C8 and E13, page 1, number 18.
I believe that was 17, she said.
Okay, 18.
18? Okay.
I'll second.
Moved by trustee Brown, seconded by trustee Marks. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
So move forward.
Thank you. All right, so that takes us down to approval of order of discussion action items. Is there anyone in the public wishing to comment on the approval of discussion and action items or approval of the order? Seeing none. We now have items 8A and B added to the agenda. So with that, I'm looking for a motion for approval of the order of discussion action items.
So moved.
All right, it's been moved by trustee Walker and seconded by trustee West. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approves. And this takes us to the period for public presentation and public comment. And at this time, I am going to read a comment for the statement on the period for public comment. I want to call your attention to the fact that if you wish to address the board during the period for public comment on a subject not on the agenda, you must complete a public presentation request card. And those are in the back and submitted to the board president prior to the period for public comment. There's still time to do that while I read this. Only those who have submitted cards will be called upon to speak, and no cards will be accepted after the period has begun. Every person who wishes to address the board must fill out a card. You'll find the cards in the lobby. The period for public comment is limited to 30 minutes. Time will be allotted equally to individuals based on the number of request cards submitted. The maximum for any one speaker is 3 minutes. I also want to remind you that if you wish to make a complaint against a specific district employee, you should follow the district's personnel complaint procedure. Copies of that procedure are also available in the lobby, as are agenda copies, which outline the procedures we will observe during the period for public comment. The right to address the board does not exempt the speaker from any potential liability for defamation. The law limits the response of board members and prohibits the board from taking any formal action. So at this time, I have 2 comment cards. And so the first is Rebecca Ray. Good evening. And you have 3 minutes this evening.
Perfect, thanks. Good evening, board trustees and Dr. Noguchi. My name is Rebecca Ray. I work for Barnes & Noble as the Market Business Development Manager. I serve Stanislaus, Merced counties, and San Joaquin. And I am really new in this position, but I've been working with San Joaquin County for about 3 years and working with their biggest district, Stockton Unified, and serving about 40,000 students. So I am excited to work for your county and for your district specifically to help get all the materials needed. We work with the departments in career development and CTE, English language development, anything that you need, we are here to help. So whether that be in supporting curriculum, getting any orders to timely, it is our job to assist all of the schools. So that's going to be my job in the first 3 months, is just to really connect with your administration, your schools, your teachers. Alongside with that, our Modesto store serves your district in allowing our educator discount cards to be issued to all staff and teachers, and you do receive a 20% discount every single day and online. So it's in store and online. And then several times a year, we do have educator appreciation events. So coming up in August, we do have educator appreciation days. So it's every weekend in August, and you save an extra 5% for a total savings of 25%. So that's on your personal purchases. The Modesto store does not care what you buy. And it is just a benefit for all of your teachers. So I'll be passing that information out to all of your sites as I meet with everybody. We also have a great program to support literacy. So it's our summer reading program. It's for students grades 1 through 6. We give them a free book after they've read any 8 books over the summer. So this ends on September 3rd. So I'll be talking to your sites, your elementary school sites, and saying, hey, on the first day, let your students, fill out the journal, have the parent sign, bring it into the store, no purchase necessary whatsoever, and they get a free book from Barnes & Noble. And that, again, is to help support literacy. We do offer storytime events in our Modesto store to help with literacy. We have costume characters, and we've oftentimes brought out costume characters to the sites to then have the students fall in love with the storybook and, again, reading. So think of us as just an extension of your schools and what you are doing, and we all appreciate you, and I look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Ray, for your generosity and the generosity of Barnes & Noble. Thank you. All right. And the next person is Debbie Barrera. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam President, Governing Board, and members of the Chamber. My name is Debbie Barrera, and I am with We're La Raza Parents Union. And what we would like to do is welcome our new superintendent, Madam Dr. Noguchi. On behalf of the parents and the community, we would like to welcome you to our district. We look forward to collaborating, working towards a better tomorrow when it comes to our students' education, as it has been designed under the state and federal laws. Ms. West, because you are in my district, not that I'm picking on you, but you did quote 2 that I want to requote. The first one was when we were selecting our superintendent, your question was, how can we turn this district into a success? Well, I believe that this district is now on a better road, and I thank this governing board. And the only way we can make it a success is if you support our new superintendent. And so I truly believe, on behalf of the parents and the community, that it is possible. There was another thing you quoted, and I will requote. New beginning, new chapter. Let's turn the page. We are so willing to do that. There's only 2 things that the parents and the community look towards: trust and truth. And in working with trust and truth with all employees, we can make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. That concludes the time period that's all the cards I have this evening. So for public comment. So that takes us on to items B1, which is a student representative to the board report, which we don't have our student here at this time. Ms. Benz is in New York, I believe, working for the New York Times, interning. So we'll have an exciting report when she gets back. Then the Modesto Teachers Association, Mr. Burton has informed me you don't have a report tonight. Thank you. And then the California School Employees Association report. Good evening, Mr. Corgett.
Good evening, President Newman, trustees, and new superintendent, Dr. Sarah Noguchi. On behalf of CSEA, I would just like to welcome our new superintendent and give her a warm CSEA welcome, and looking forward to a good working relationship in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. That takes us, we're moving right along. That takes us to item B4, the request to address the board by Anthony Presto of the San Joaquin Valley Air District. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Anthony Presto. I'm the Outreach and Communications Representative for the northern region of the San Joaquin Valley Air District. I'm here tonight to tell you about all of the valuable resources that are available absolutely free to help protect all of your students from unhealthy levels of air pollution and educate them at the same time. First of all, a little bit about the air district and air pollution in the San Joaquin Valley. We're a government agency, obviously, and the San Joaquin Valley Air Basin's made up of 8 counties from San Joaquin all the way down the Kern. It's the largest air basin in the United States with the second worst air quality. We have a governing board made up of 15 members. 8 of them are supervisors from each of the 8 counties, 5 city council representatives rotating between small, medium-sized, and large cities in the San Joaquin Valley, and 2 that are appointed by the governor. They are not elected officials. They are a scientist specializing in air pollution and a medical doctor who specializes in the effects of air pollution on the body. We are not the EPA. We are not the California Air Resources Board, but we do take some direction from them in trying every feasible control measure to meet health-based air quality standards. This is an illustration that really gives you an idea of why we have an air quality problem in the San Joaquin Valley. The satellite image shows a valley filled with smog, almost completely surrounded by mountains. Particulate matter and other pollutants get trapped in the valley the same way that fog does. And in the wintertime, we have a lot of fog or particulate matter that's trapped in the valley. In the summertime, it's ozone pollution. Ozone is not a directly emitted pollutant. It has to be formed. And it's formed when the sun cooks different pollutants like nitrogen oxide. Most of that comes from motor vehicles. And also those mix with volatile organic compounds. So it's the perfect recipe when you get all of these different pollutants in the San Joaquin Valley, which we have plenty of, and then which we have more of, sunlight. A lot of sun cooks those pollutants and turns them into something that's even worse than those individual pollutants, which is ozone, a corrosive gas that damages lung tissue. So in the summertime, the longer the days are and the hotter, the more of that ozone that builds up in the valley, and then it disperses at night. The other, particulate matter, is even more harmful to the body because we actually see some premature deaths from particulate matter pollution. This is directly emitted. It's mostly in the form of smoke or dust, to put it very simply. PM10 stands for particulate matter that's 10 microns and smaller. Those are the larger particles, but still small enough to get deep into the lungs and cause all kinds of nasty problems. But what's even worse is fine particulate matter, or PM 2.5. That illustration there shows a grain of sand and grains of sand and a human hair. And those little pink dots are how small particulate matter is in relation to these things. Particulate matter can get deep into the lungs, causing lung infections, reducing lung function, exacerbating asthma, emphysema, chronic bronchitis, and also is so small that it can get into the bloodstream, increasing the risks of heart attack and stroke. And children whose lungs are still developing are especially sensitive to air pollution. Where does it all come from? A majority of nitrogen oxide, which is a key factor in ozone formation and in forming fine particulate matter, most of it comes from mobile sources. And mobile sources are something local air districts don't have regulatory authority over. So we ask the residents of the valley, businesses, to do everything they can to reduce emissions. Heavy-duty trucks are the biggest source of nitrogen oxide in the valley, along with other mobile sources. Volatile organic compounds, such as the gases that come from livestock, aerosol sprays, degreasers, most of these are stationary sources, which we do have the ability to regulate. So we have a little bit better handle on these forms of air pollution. And then particulate matter, As I said, a lot of that is smoke and dust coming from windblown dust, some mobile sources, heavy-duty trucks, farming operations. In the wintertime, fireplaces and wood stoves or residential wood burning becomes a much bigger source than 6%, which it says there as an annual emissions inventory. From November through February, it makes up about a third of our particulate matter pollution in the valley, and that's why we have a check before you burn program to reduce emissions. All that being said, air pollution in the valley and air quality is improving by great strides. 2017 was the best year on record for ozone pollution, and particulate matter pollution is also improving as well. The spike that you see there in unhealthy days happened during the drought. Drought really hurts us in many ways, not just with lack of water for everybody in the valley, but we also see dry conditions which cause a lot of dust, which increase the risk of wildfires, which causes particulate matter pollution to build up during winter days and affects us with residential wood burning even more and more. So all that being said, I want to introduce you to Healthy Air Living Schools and how all of this applies to our school children and the many ways that we are offering for you to help protect them from all this type of air pollution. Many of you may be familiar with the Air Quality Flag Program. Modesto City Schools has been using it. It's been used throughout the valley. We introduced it in 2005, supported it for about 10 years. It was a great program, letting the public and schools know what the forecast is for air quality in the San Joaquin Valley. We stopped supporting it in about 2015 and replaced the flag program with the Real-Time Air Advisory Network. The reason that we do that is because when you're looking at the forecast, it's actually the best possible educated guess for what the worst air quality of the day will be in each given county. And we make that forecast for every county in the San Joaquin Valley. But if you look at the graph there, which shows air quality in real time over a day, air quality does not stay the same all day long. And the situation that we had with the Air Quality Flag Program, maybe we're expecting air quality to reach unhealthy levels. A school puts up the red flag, everybody keeps the kids in, they don't get the exercise they need, even though early in the morning or later in the afternoon air quality might be much better. And this allows administrators to be able to see air quality in a more accurate stage and to see it in real time. If you were to go to myran.com, which you could do at any time, day or night, you can see the current air quality for your location. It actually zeroes in on where you are, your square mile, and you get accurate current air quality information, and that is usable by everybody in the San Joaquin Valley. Go to our website. You can use the telephone app, which is available for all smartphone platforms. And it'll look just like that, and it'll tell you what level of air quality we're at, and it's also associated and paired with the ROAR, or Real-Time Outdoor Activity Guidelines. This is also on our website, and we would like all the schools in the San Joaquin Valley to be using this, as it gives administrators an educated preparation on how to make choices for duration of outdoor playtime, PE, in association with the level of air quality. So when you're using RAN and ROAR together, you can make some good educated choices on outdoor activity for kids. Also available for all the schools to place on their websites is the RAN widget. There's two different widgets there, the horizontal and the vertical. Anyone can go visit a school website and get that very small, easy to read RAN outlook, and that updates every hour, just like RAN does. It's connected to RAN. And then something that is a pilot program right now in the San Joaquin Valley. A limited number of schools are testing this out for us. It's also connected by Wi-Fi to RAN, and it is a true replacement for the FLAG program, but giving you that information in real time, and that is READ, Real-Time Electronic Air Quality Display. What the read is a flat screen. Let's see the flat screen TV that we're all looking at right now. If you were to shrink that down to 32 inches and put it on the inside of the window of the office of the school, facing the front of the school, so everybody in the parking lot or walking up to the school could actually see what the current air quality is in real time and the most accurate air quality information possible. And it updates when RAN updates, going from level 1, level 2, 3, 4, and 5, depending on what the air quality is. And this is an example of what it looks like at Salida Middle School right now. They're using it also, and that's from the parking lot. It's very bright. This is placing the read in Peyton School with the principal there, very proud and happy to put that in there. Peyton School in Stockton, so that any passersby and visitors can receive that. So that gives you information on many different levels of how to see what the air quality is. Also, to protect the kids is our No Idling campaign. And these signs are available in both English and Spanish for all schools in the San Joaquin Valley. The reason we started this No Idling campaign is we were seeing, as air quality improves throughout the year, the hottest months of the summer, where we used to exceed the federal standard for ozone pollution, July, June, that stopped happening. We saw no more exceedances as air quality would improve. And then when school would get back into session in the second half of August, early September, we would see ozone levels spike during those hours that school's getting out. When you have 50 to 100 parents, they're all sitting there idling. They're creating a huge cloud of noxious fumes that the kids are walking right into as they're tired at the end of the school day, which means they're more at risk to get sick. Their immune levels lower, and so we started this campaign, and we are seeing improvements already in the past couple of years on ozone pollution during those hours. But it can only get better if everybody participates, and this is what those signs look like placed at a school. That's Merced High. Also, we have a it used to be called a curriculum. Now it's an activity. It's Healthy Air Heroes for elementary school kids, also free. Any teachers can order it for their classrooms. Individual parents are welcome to order it as well. With that comes an activity booklet that has stories, puzzles, and games that teach kids about air quality in the San Joaquin Valley. And with that activity booklet, they get a pencil, crayons, stickers, and a small toy. And then hopefully many of you are familiar with the Healthy Air Living Kids calendar. We have this contest every year, and kids are invited from all over the San Joaquin Valley to enter their drawings to depict what healthy air looks like, or what it looks like to live a healthy air life. And the contest ends at the beginning of October. Every year we pick 14 pieces of artwork from all over the San Joaquin Valley and print 20,000 of these calendars. Go to the kids' classrooms who are in the calendar, make a little presentation and a big deal about how special they are as an artist, a published artist who is now in a calendar, and we have a lot of fun with that. So we hope you'll get that information to all of your schools. That is Healthy Air Living Schools. We're available at public education at valleyair.com. We have two websites, valleyair.org and healthyairliving.com, and we would invite you to follow us on social media, where every day there are different announcements, and you can ask us questions on social media and such. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Presto. I think Trustee Brown has a question for you.
Absolutely.
I have a couple of quick questions. I know there was a day earlier this year when the fires in the Bay Area were just atrocious, and you could walk out the door and see and feel and smell and not breathe. Is there any kind of an alert that happens when any kind of public service announcement that could tell our schools just don't let the kids out the door?
Absolutely, and that's what really there is an element to that is part of Healthy Air Living Schools. RAN actually gives you the information when air quality reaches unhealthy levels. You're going to get that alert when you're signed up for RAN. We also send these health cautionary statements and health air alerts out to all the media, and we put them on social media. So that's a great reason to be following us on social media and to be signed up for RAND so that you'll always know exactly what's going on. Incidentally, sometimes when technology does not give you the entire story, follow your nose and your eyes. If you see or smell smoke in your immediate vicinity, you know it's entering your lungs and probably doing damage, and that's when you should retreat indoors and obviously keep the kids inside. So, thank you
Are there
once
any
again.
more questions for Mr. Presto from the board? All right, thank you. We're going to go to the public and see if they have any questions or comments.
And by the way, I did bring, and they are available out front, our community report. There's plenty of these. They tell everything about all of our programs, and the Healthier Living Schools brochure. All of you should have one of those, and those are also available up front.
Great, thank you for sharing that material. All right, so what we'll do is we'll have, if you want to go ahead and have a seat, we'll have them come up and ask the questions, and I'd have you come back up and answer them if that's the case. So, all right, I think I saw Rose's hand first. Ms. Mitchell, right? Yes.
Okay, remember your first name, Anthony, right? I forgot the last name.
All
sorry.
right, we got to ask the
Okay.
questions to us.
I'm Rose Mitchell with NAACP and Private Citizen. My question relates to all of the chemical spraying that is scheduled, and it sprays in the valley, it sprays as below San Diego, and it's a horrible, horrible mess. And everybody that I know are talking about it, and they call it chemtrails. I want to know how all of these particles, first of all, what's in this spraying that they do, why they're doing it, and how it affects air quality. I noticed in your presentation, you didn't say anything about the chemical trails. You talked about the smoke, the dust, the fine particles that are in the air, and we know all of that does affect a young child's and an adult's health. And so I'd like you to expand on that if you could.
Are you able to answer that question for her?
To a degree.
Great, thank you, Mr. Presto.
Mobile sources of air pollution are under the regulatory authority of the Environmental Protection Agency and the California Air Resources Board, and even more directly when it comes to airplanes, that is the Federal Aviation Authority. My personal knowledge, it's actually contrails, and the exhaust from airplanes that happened extremely high in the sky where it's way below freezing temperatures is simply a condensation trail, and if you are experiencing other type of air pollution down at ground level, it's very likely coming from some other source, and you should contact either us if you know what the source is, or the Public Health Department.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Barrera.
Debbie Barrera, We Are La Raza Parents Union. Mine is more of a comment / suggestion. In the past, I have said we have developed what we call curbside service, and so I would love to see signs of the no idling in English and Spanish, not only at Modesto City School sites, but in all 26 districts. So I appreciate your presentation on behalf of the community. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any more questions or comments from the audience? All right, seeing none, back to the board for any comments. This is not an action item. Are there any comments? Oh, yes. Trustee Walker.
I'd like to thank Mr. Presto for coming, and that was a good answer on the airplanes. In my day job, that's exactly what we talk about with the contrails at very high elevations and ice dissipating. I've actually seen very, very complicated presentations on that. I think the no idling thing is a good idea and a good program, especially as a parent at Enox with the traffic circles. It can get backed up very quickly. And I appreciate the information on the app, and I will go get that certainly for my family and pass that along to parents who ask about it, because I have children that use inhalers. And it's often nice to know on a day when they need them so that we check in with them, because they don't always listen very well to us parents. And now there's a way to monitor that. I appreciate the report. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anyone else? All right, thank you, Mr. Presto, for coming this evening and providing us with this important information. Thank you for your time. All right, that takes us on to item B5, which is report on Modesto City Schools Intervention Center. I'd like to turn the matter over to Dr. Noguchi.
Marla Mack will be presenting this.
Good evening. At the request of the Board of Trustees, Educational Services will provide a report on the 9th through 12th grade intervention center. In 2017-18, the Local Control Accountability Plan provided additional support to the intervention center, adding a teacher and a student assistance specialist when school began. Tonight's report was written by Senior Director Mike Coates, who has recently retired. Senior Director Brad Godot will present tonight's report on the intervention center.
Good evening. Board President Newman, trustees, Superintendent Dr. Noguchi, and Cabinet. It's my privilege and honor this evening to present our report on the intervention centers at our high schools and Modesto City Schools. The purpose of this report is to inform you and our community about the good work that our district has undertaken to support our students. Modesto City Schools implemented intervention centers in the spring of 2014. From this moment forward, the evolution of our ICs, as they're often referred to, has centered on social emotional support and targeted assistance for students. These areas have been the focal point of this program. The IC provides behavioral interventions and academic support for struggling students. The purpose of the intervention center is to provide students with the opportunity to learn from their struggles. The IC provides a location on our high school campuses where students can examine their behaviors in a structured setting. Students go to the IC in lieu of receiving punitive consequences. Students are encouraged to reflect on their behaviors. Willing students then receive personalized, targeted assistance to help them address their behavioral and academic issues. The goal is that students reduce repeated misbehaviors and learn new skills. Our intervention centers are comprised of a dedicated team of individuals that are tasked with finding ways to support all students. Under the supervision of our site principals, our assistant principals of student supervision and attendance head up our intervention center teams. Each IC has an intervention center monitor, an intervention center teacher, as well as a student assistant specialist, often referred to as an SAS. This past school year, our LCAP funds were utilized to add the IC teacher and SAS to the intervention centers. Each of these individuals has a specific role in supporting students and maintaining an effective learning environment. IC monitors check students into the IC classroom and record student attendance. The monitor also assists in collecting and returning student work to the classroom teacher. The IC room is under the direction of the teacher. The teacher is a full-time position. They teach, establish, and reinforce expected behavioral standards and provide academic assistance to students. The IC teacher also communicates with the students' classroom teachers to coordinate assignments and student work. The student assistant specialists are contracted with the Center for Human Services. The SAS provides short-term education, prevention, and intervention services to students to build life, social, and coping skills. The goal is to provide students the support they need and the opportunity to learn life skills. As a point of reference, SASs are required to have a Bachelor of Arts degree in a human services field. The center provides training prior to the SASs starting at the school and ongoing trainings to ensure they are well-versed and up-to-date with effective services for students. Our IC staff employ a variety of intervention strategies and activities. Students most often are asked to complete a reflective writing assignment to begin the process of self-reflection as to the reason the student was referred to the IC classroom. Each student's interventions are personalized based on their specific situation. The intervention strategies employed may include restorative practices, such as a restorative conversation, developing restorative apologies, a restorative conference, and reintegration after a home suspension. Academic interventions may include an academic review of the student's progress, classwork or homework completion, a writing activity, or a reading assignment. Behavioral interventions may include behavioral review, de-escalation, and a response to or conflict mediation. Key to this process is that students may also be referred to our site-based supports or outside services. This may include a referral for a student success team to come and evaluate a student in a situation and provide additional supports. It may include a medical review or a referral to an outside agency that can provide additional counseling services. We also have site-based student assistance specialists outside of the intervention centers that are housed on each campus, where a student can go see that SAS for up to 10 times to receive additional counseling services outside of the intervention center process. It is not uncommon for students and their parents to be referred to additional counseling services. The implementation of intervention centers has greatly reduced the need for home suspensions. Students participate in interventions to learn new skills toward changing behaviors. There has been a significant decline in the number of students that are in the intervention center for full days, and we'll see data here in just a moment. In the past, struggling students that were sent to the in-school suspension room were not permitted to participate in extra and co-curricular activities on the day of their ISS suspension. Students now receive counseling and other interventions to address their specific challenges. Part of this process is connecting students to school. We know that students that are involved in extra and co-curricular activities are more successful. The data on this slide indicates dramatic improvement in our efforts to support the needs of our students. I would like to point out that this slide has been updated to reflect the entirety of the 2017-18 school year. The data slide in your board report only included data through the end of the third quarter. So this is updated. That last box on the bottom is the entire year. The red line represents the number of 912 home suspensions over the past 8 years. As you can see, there has been a very steady decline in home suspension over this period of time relative to where we were as a district back in 2010 and 11. You will note that last year we saw an increase over the previous year in home suspensions for the first time since 2010. Many of these home suspensions we believe were related to many of the issues that we saw unfolding across our nation with school safety, students making inappropriate comments, doing things that maybe in previous times may not have elicited as much of a response, but when you've got to bring in PD and outside resources to investigate flippant comments, there were certain responses. So we believe that some of the increase was due to that. The blue line represents the number of students sent to the in-school suspension room for all-day suspensions in ISS. Okay, that's really important. That top line, there's two different points of data. The blue line represents ISS data, students that were in that room all day long. The green line, which starts in 13-14, represents students in the intervention center. As you recall, this was the year we transitioned from an in-school suspension room to the concept of an intervention center. The green line shows the number of students that received a day of support in the IC room. Again, this slide illustrates the incredible decline in home suspensions and expulsions over the past 8 years. From 124 expulsions in 11-12 to 8 last year. From just over 25 home suspensions in 2011-12 to 1,372 home suspensions last year. That is a dramatic improvement. Modesto City Schools is changing the climate on our campuses through implementation of various strategies. Positive behavior intervention and supports, also known as PBIS, restorative practices, and intervention centers are just a few of the things that we are doing to improve our students. These three initiatives work together in changing the climate on campus from punitive consequences to our focus on changing student behaviors. We are now tracking intervention center data for the current school year using a new, more specific and detailed system. The data on this slide here was collected in the second semester. The process for collecting data was initiated in the first semester with conversations. The second semester, or excuse me, this data up here represents the numbers and percentages solely based on second semester data. As previously stated, the purpose of the IC classroom is to help students learn from their mistakes, correct misbehaviors, and return to class. This data includes services provided to both period only, meaning I just went for third period to receive services, as well as students that were in the intervention center all day. Several of the highlights. As you will see, 49% of students that participated in receiving services in the intervention center did not have a second visit. I think that's pretty impressive data there. Initial intakes, you can see the percentage of students that participated in those different activities: reflective writing, IC teacher conference, and an SAS conference. Again, these are students participate in these activities voluntarily. There's no mandate that they must. They are offered these opportunities to self-reflect and participate. You'll also see restorative practices, academic interventions, particularly academic review, classwork homework completion. That is more helping the student collect work, getting back on track. PE writing activity is typically students that are in there for a dress cut or some other type of issue in physical education. Let me offer some background from my perspective as an employee of our district for the past 21 years. I started at Davis High School in 1998 as a PE teacher and a coach. And I can remember the in-school suspension rooms bursting at the seam every period on a daily basis. If you had a problem, you sent a kid to ISS. Go. And then they would go and they would check in and they would sit either silently doing schoolwork, or if they didn't do that, they were sent home on a home suspension. There wasn't a vast amount of resources provided for students. It was a punitive consequence. You misbehaved, you go sit in ISS. If you can figure it out, you come back to class. This outdated process provided the consequence that so many of us expected back then when a rule was broken. Now, fast forward to our present day. Our district's entire philosophy in working with struggling students has changed. The commitment and investment of resources within our high schools to support behavioral and academic interventions as the primary response to struggling students has been dramatic. It has not been easy, but it has been a dramatic change. I can say that I'm proud of the work that we've done in this area. I do not say this to imply that our system is flawless. We have room for growth, but we are working diligently to analyze what is working. We will be using data to identify areas that need to be addressed. We are collaborating with our site administrators and intervention center staffs, as well as our partner organizations such as the Center for Human Services, to identify ways in which we can continue to evolve our work in this area and to better serve the needs of our students. Thank you. I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Godot. I think there's some questions from our board. So, Trustee Brown.
I was particularly happy to see the number of one-time visits to the intervention centers. But I'm curious if there isn't any, or if there is any feedback that we're getting from the classroom teachers that tells us whether or not there has been a behavior change. Is that something that we track, or could we track that to see how effective?
Well, I wouldn't want to speak for all the teachers, but I think part of this process is if a student is sent to the intervention center to address a specific misbehavior or issue, and that student returns and that same issue is continuing, has not been corrected, then typically that's going to generate another referral to the intervention center or another visit to the intervention center.
So in my thinking, if we can compliment the students on progress, then we're actually rewarding an improvement in the behavior. Is there a way that we can build that into the system?
Trustee Brown, yeah, we actually visited a lot of the ICs last year, and anecdotally, there's a lot of great information that comes from the teachers in terms of those success stories. We just need to find a way to better quantify that in terms of real numbers, but I will tell you anecdotally, I would think that if the teachers were here, they would be talking about lots of changes that they see in the kids that they work with consistently.
All right, Trustee Walker.
As the outside of saying how happy I am to see this report, as somebody who's been very interested in it and tracking these numbers statewide, and there's a whole lot more good stuff we're not talking about without making the report too long to put everybody to sleep. Do we have problems in the sense of human resources is getting these SASs hired and in place? And was that a struggle, or is that something we foresee as, if you get the context of where I'm headed here?
You know what, I mean, we have been fortunate to have a great relationship with them. I will say that Center for Human Services has been very, very responsive. That being said, when we decided to go with the intervention centers, it was a process. So it took us a little bit of time to get things in place, but I'll be honest with you, the center moves quickly, so I'm grateful for that.
And so now we have this sort of ongoing relationship that allows us to work that way. And if I'm not mistaken, the intent is to sort of lead back now. Next steps would be to lead into the junior highs with the same sort of concept, correct?
Same kind of staff. Same kind of staff will be in the junior highs as well next year. Correct.
Just to tie in, I'm sorry, just to tie into that as well, I met with the Center for Human Services just last week to talk about the steps, the things that we have done over the past year, forward looking into this next year, how we can utilize them and have this partnership. We've got collaboration days. We include the SASs as they can be available to come and participate in those. So it's not just our intervention centers teachers, but it's our SASs. And both the teachers and the SASs serve in different capacities within the same IC center. So we get different perspectives, right? They provide similar services, but we get different perspectives. So how we can evolve the center depends on that collaboration.
To answer your question about the junior highs, yes. The Board of Trustees voted on the LCAP to expand that to the junior high this next year. We currently have an SAS, and Mark oversees the SASs. That's why he's part of this report tonight, and we didn't introduce him. So I want to make sure he was introduced. Along with, so we already have SASs at the junior high. We do not have teachers. So we are just going through that process. Again, it will be a little bit later in getting them hired because there is a process that they have to do at the site. That will be coming this fall. So we are moving to the junior high because as you notice, our data for discipline, we see a need there. So that was encouraged to also take this program down to the junior high.
I'm just excited. I think that, this is a report I've wanted for a long time, just because I look at the numbers, and I do think that when you look at what the district has done in a comprehensive plan, because it isn't just the high schools, it's, as you mentioned, nothing's perfect. But there is restorative justice, PBIS, leverage learning, all these programs that have been functioning for multiple years at the elementary level. We've heard reports where they have said that it's going to take time as it feeds through, and over time we can start to see these results. That I think it's the picture of a successful program. There's always ways to improve. Nobody's ever going to say we can't always improve. And I think the other side thing is that they don't just use the intervention centers for that it's also a great place for the students just to call a timeout. And I know that my daughter, my youngest, has used it on a number of times where the day is just bad and she's just having a hard time. And my answer to her has always been, call a timeout, go over to the intervention center, get back together, and then head back to class. And the idea that there's a smile, a warm heart, and somebody there willing to say, I'm going to help you turn this day around is worth, in my opinion. Great job. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee West.
Having worked as a school counselor with at-risk kids, this is a topic that's really close to my heart as well. And I think the idea of going to non-punitive measures, restorative justice and PBIS, in theory, I think is really good. Sometimes it's difficult because the people aren't trained correctly. What kind of training do we offer our support people, the teachers and the principals, to be able to make sure these centers are being really used in the appropriate way?
Staff training, there was a 3-day training for all IC teachers. student assistant specialists, et cetera, on restorative practices, and the assistant principals attended with them. At the high school and junior high level, depending on implementation of restorative practice, kind of depends on when their journey started with it. So I would say that the junior highs collectively on the whole, I believe every junior high was trained. Actually, last year Roosevelt was added and La Loma, so those were the last two high schools. This year we will add the last two high schools in terms of overall staff training. The problem, and I think I share this, I think Trustee Walker hit the nail on the head. The problem is probably the enormity of the district. And so really what we're doing, I mean, to roll out a cultural change like restorative practices will take time. It is an ongoing, it's a journey, to be honest with you. Dr. West.
All right, any further questions? Trustee Marks?
I was going to comment, but I thought about a question. Appreciate all this information, and it's really thorough, and I appreciate all this information in here. Helps me understand the IC centers a lot better and just how they function. But my question is there any way we can be proactive in teaching our students some of the same skills, life skills, and the soft skills, de-escalation techniques that we're teaching the students inside of the classroom in that time, because that way they may not end up in that situation. So do we have any way to do that?
The first two things that come to the top of my mind when you ask that question is one, our PBIS programs, which is, encouraging and modeling the way that we want students to behave.
Right.
The other is our health classes, and I spoke to this when we were covering the youth suicide intervention and prevention board policy process, but our health classes also teach mental health and how to take care of yourself, and de-escalation techniques, or how you can take care of yourself from the inside out, and that is part of our curriculum in 9th grade health.
Okay.
And Trustee Marks, also remember that there are student assistant specialists at all of our sites that have nothing to do with the intervention center. So right there's an opportunity for kids who perhaps are struggling to be able to go in and get some additional support in skill building and all those things that you just mentioned.
That's good. I'm just thinking of, like our character traits, treat each other with respect and be kind to each other, be compassionate, those kinds of things that we want all our students to emulate as they grow, and it will help them in the workforce, wherever they go, and just in life in general. So those are, I think it's great how the students are responding to the information in the classroom. In I'm calling it a classroom only because it's outside the classroom, but it is a room that is used also as a classroom and for teaching. So appreciate that. Thank you.
Trustee Lopez?
I just want to thank you for the presentation. I got to tour Mark Twain and Hanshaw intervention centers, and I saw the great work that they were doing. So I'm really excited that the teachers are going to come in this upcoming year to really complement the work that's already being done. So thank you so much.
I have just a question on the chart that you showed us. I just want to make sure I'm understanding it. So 49% of the students who went to, the total students who went to an intervention center never went back after one time.
Correct.
Okay. And then so this is just of the students who had gone at all, then 32% went twice or between 2 to 4 times.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
You're reading that correctly.
And then this 1,678 is out of all of our high schools, right? This is just
correct. The total number of students that attended an all-day intervention center was 1,678 across all of our high schools.
Okay. I just want to make sure I understood that. That's an impressive number. You were right to point that out. So thank you. And thank you for the thorough report to all the staff, Mr. Herbst and Ms. Mack. And thank you for working on this. And if Mike's listening, thank you to him as well.
Hi, Mike.
Yeah. So all right. Well, thank you. So if there's any further questions from the board, we'll take it to the public for comment. All right. Ms. Williams.
Gladys Williams, welcome. And Mark, I want to thank you for the report. I want to also thank you, Marla, for your transparency on the junior high students. And we look forward to working with you on this issue and getting much better and better all the time. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Barrera.
Music to my ears. I want to thank this governing board for, first of all, paying attention, and the district, Marla, Mark, you've heard me time after time after time, and I want to thank you because parents are voicing change, and they're seeing it in their children. And I just want to thank everybody that has pulled together so that our children, as I always say, if we don't educate them, we'll have to incarcerate them, and that's not what we want. And so we just want to thank everybody that is now paying attention to this die-hard need of restorative practice. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any more comments or questions from the audience? All right. Seeing none, then we'll come back to the board. This is just a report. So are there any closing comments? Okay. Trustee Walker.
I want to just, for my fellow board members, Cindy does meetings, I do training. And so I was at a training conference just last weekend, and I've done others where I'm in a room with 35 or 40 board members from different districts. And this topic comes up at the introduction of almost any presentation, anywhere. They lead with this. And I think one of the things that I'm really proud about what Modesto City Schools has done is that we're 6-7 years into this process. We're not just starting out. We are into a program that is comprehensive. It is showing results. And when I'm in conversations with other board members, they're not where we're at. And that's apparent up and down this state. You can pull numbers from any one of a number of counties across the state that aren't doing what we're doing. And I think that trend line is phenomenal. We'll wait and see what happens with the uptick. I think Mr. Godot was spot on that a lot of that uptick is due to the environment and the news cycle we went through last year. And it'll be interesting to see what the state numbers do if they mimic that. Because I do think that certainly with my children and what we heard at home, and just the noise level is very high. And I think that that drives anxiety, and I couldn't be happier and prouder of the district. And I think when I'm with other board members, they don't have a lot of what we have in place, and that's an asset to all of us, and especially the children.
All right. Any further comment? All right. Thank you again, staff,
President
for that
Newman,
report.
can I just say one thing?
Yes.
I just want to honestly publicly acknowledge they're not here today, but the teachers and the staff of the ICs. I mean, it really was what happened last year was like Mr. Godot said, an evolvement, and to recognize the work that they're doing, you'd be pretty impressed with what you see in those centers.
Good. Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out.
And
Ms.
can I
Mack?
just add, Mr. Miller wasn't able to share anything, but he's done a great job of training our assistant principals and really taking a part of this too. He's been a team all last year. Many of us have met with Center of Human Services, and he was part of that team too.
All
So
right.
I just want to recognize that part too.
Thank you, Mr. Miller, and thank you for coming this evening to the meeting. All right. Any further comments? All right. Then that takes us on to the next agenda item, which is another report on the nutrition services. And I'd like to turn this over to Dr. Noguchi.
And I'll be turning it over to Tim Zerley.
Thank you, Dr. Noguchi, President Newman. Nutrition Services is one of several departments under Business Services, and I'm proud to introduce Senior Director Chris Atwell, who will give a report to the board on the achievements and highlights of the Nutrition Services Department.
Good evening, Board President Newman, board members, Superintendent Noguchi, and Cabinet. Chris Atwell, Senior Director, Nutrition Services. Every other year, I typically give a presentation related to the wellness policy, but tonight I thought it might be a good idea if I talked to you about what we've been up to, our vision, and where we're going in the future. Tonight I'll share an overview of our department, the impact of Senate Bill 138, modernization including advancements in technology and improvements in infrastructure, and future plans for the department. Our department has 240 employees. This includes 2 culinary trained professionals and a registered dietitian. We serve 24,000 meals daily. We serve 2,000 snacks in our after-school snack program. During the summer, we serve meals to our summer school students in 20 different programs. We also operate a summer feeding program at 26 locations throughout Stanislaus County. We operate out of the Nutrition Services Center, which is a 35,000 square foot food processing facility. Our facility has state-of-the-art equipment, including an automatic bread machine that produces over 1.2 million units of bread products annually. We have a growing hot food kettle system that we produce 15,000 entrees daily. An example of an item we make in the growing kettles is our scratch-made low-sodium marinara sauce. Our recipe includes over 100 pounds of fresh celery, carrots, onions, basil, and garlic. Fresh produce is delivered in the central kitchen. In 1 week, we go through over 20,000 pounds. This includes carrots, celery, cilantro, lime, various lettuce blends, and seasonal fruit. Whenever possible, we purchase produce locally. We are one of the largest users of fresh fruits and vegetables in the USDA pilot program in the state of California. In summary, we spend over $5 million in food purchases annually to support all of our various programs that serve over 4 million meals collectively. The majority of our sales come from lunch, breakfast, and the sale of smart snacks. Other sources of revenue include catering, adult sales, and vended meals. I'd like to take a few minutes tonight to talk about Senate Bill 138 and the impact it will have on our district. On October 12, 2017, Governor Brown signed into law the Count Me In for School Meals Act. The law requires that on or before September 1st, 2018, schools that meet the qualification defined in the bill offer breakfast and lunch to students free of charge. Qualification is based on direct certification by school. Direct certification is made up of students that are identified as homeless, migrant, foster, or runaway. Also, students who are in a household that participate in SNAP, CalWorks, or CalFresh. Starting in the beginning of the 2017-18 school year, students that come from homes that receive Medi-Cal free were also included under the umbrella of direct certification. That increased the district percentages approximately 40%. Based on these numbers, 17 of our schools qualify for the Universal Free Meal Program. According to the No Kid Hungry annual report, students who eat breakfast and lunch have higher test scores. In addition, students who eat school breakfast also have better attendance. In accordance with our department tagline, Eat Well, Stay Well, Nutrition Services has always been dedicated to creating and maintaining a healthy learning environment for all of our students. While 17 schools qualify for free meals under SB 138, our team worked with the state to find ways to extend free meals to more of our schools. I'm pleased to announce that the Nutrition Services Department will be extending the free universal meal program to all K-8 schools, Davis, Downey, Elliott, Johansson, and Modesto High School as well. With the Nutrition Services program as comprehensive as ours, modernization is an ongoing endeavor. In the 17-18 school year, we focused on technology upgrades that increase student access to resources, enhanced food safety systems, and infrastructure upgrades to better serve our students. We've upgraded our department website to include new features such as an interactive nutrition calculator, online meal applications, an online prepayment system, and other nutrition and fitness resources. Currently, our site is viewed over 15,000 times monthly. We also offer a mobile app that allows students to view menus and nutrition information on the go. We've also installed digital menu boards at all 7 through 12 sites. Digital menu boards show students what options we offer, highlight menu specials, and shows the importance of staying active. Our largest and most complex project in the 17-18 school year was the installation of our new point-of-sale system. We started preparing for this project in August, and we rolled it out in February. Prior to the rollout, collectively, our team spent over 2,000 hours in training. Some of the benefits include faster processing of payments, more accurate transaction time, more accurate reporting, and the ability to troubleshoot the system remotely. In our central kitchen, we produce scratch-made items such as marinara sauce, mashed potatoes, turkey and gravy, and macaroni and cheese. We're currently in the process of adding a barcoded food traceability system. This technology will enhance our food safety program by allowing us to better track the flow of foods to the school sites. Other projects include renovating existing facilities and equipment to become more energy efficient and environmentally friendly and inviting for students. At Davis and Downey, water-cooled refrigeration units will be replaced with air-cooled units. This will help us conserve significant amounts of water daily. Additionally, Johansson will receive upgraded refrigeration equipment, and that is much more energy efficient. We're also in the process of remodeling the serving area at Johansson, and we're also exploring options for other remodeling projects at junior highs and other high schools. Examples of some of the upgrades include modern bright lights, fresh paint, new flooring, and food service decor. Also, refrigerated display cases with LED lighting will also be added. At Elliott, we added an outdoor kiosk offering students a new place where meals are served. The kiosk features trendy fresh fruit cups topped with chili lime seasoning and chamoy sauce. Studies show that students who eat breakfast and lunch do better in school. We also want to create an appealing environment that students want to be a part of, one that encourages our students to eat well. Today's generation of students, Generation Z, is the most web-savvy, app-friendly generation to date. Students are interested in knowing more about where their food is coming from, what is in their food, and food photos like Instagram. Based on this data, we're working to increase information transparency and adding dynamic photos of menu options. We'll also be adding a new vending machine at Enox that dispenses complete meals. This will both add a new location to purchase meals on campus and will cater to those looking for on-the-go options. Over the past few months, we've also conducted student taste tests throughout the district to learn what students want in a meal program. Generation Z is most interested in international flavors, a variety of options offered, and healthy on-the-go choices. Based on this feedback, we've developed new menu items for next year. Examples include a variety of smoothies, Korean barbecue tacos, whole grain fried rice with Thai chili chicken. As we move forward, we're excited to see what the future holds. Today's cafeteria must be able to adapt to the ever-changing needs that our students demand, and the Nutrition Services Department is up to that challenge. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Atwell, for that encouraging report and very interesting. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Well, we'll save comments, but let's do questions. I had a question, but you could go first.
So with the implementation of the free meals, 100% of the students, have we anticipated an increase, and how are we going to handle that?
So the community eligibility provision, yes, we have. We talked to the state. We don't know where that will be, but we've met with all of the sites. Well, it'll be more on the productivity side and the production. We'll see at the elementaries, probably not in the serving, but at the high schools where we have our larger growth, like Enox going to single lunch period, that site is not going to CEP, but we are anticipating growth, and we've talked to the staff. We've also removed the requirement to become a substitute in the Nutrition Services Department. You no longer need a high school diploma, and we're also paying for your fingerprints, and we've also partnered with adult education for an opportunity to get into the program to get more people involved.
Great. And then part two of that, it's free for the students, but where is the cost? Where is that being paid for?
So the cost just changes where traditionally cost was based on your free and reduced percentages. Direct certification now makes up the percentages, so you'll be reimbursed at certain percentage rates. We're able to bundle. For example, how were we able to include Lakewood in with Bret Hart's, et cetera? We're bundling, and schools that have higher enrollment, we get a percentage where we can, nutrition services will cover the cost, and we will be able to, we're confident we'll be able to do that with the 31 of the 34 schools.
So just to follow up on that, so at Lakewood, even though there'll be free breakfast and lunch, if a student is not eligible for a free breakfast or lunch, they'd still be paying, correct? No.
No, everyone at Lakewood, all students are eligible for a free breakfast and a free lunch. The 31 schools are now universal free sites.
Okay.
So anyone that participates in the reimbursable meal program will receive their meal for free.
So at that site, they would no longer pay for any meals?
Well, we still have an a la carte program at our 7 through 12 sites, but you may buy, for example, Lakewood sold water, and a few kids might buy milk with their sack lunches, but overall there'll be very limited money collected.
Okay. And that would decrease the amount of personnel we would need to have, and in terms of, collecting fees and whatnot?
So really, and the question that was asked earlier, a lot of the labor really switches where the NSA 3 that before they were working on application processing, something else I guess I'll mention here that I was going to mention tomorrow at my presentation, at the K through 6 sites we'll no longer be using the point of sale system, we'll be going to a clicker system. So at that site, the NSA 3 will not need to be at the desk to have the students put in their PIN numbers, nor will they need to process applications. So their job will be more like what you would see probably in a traditional restaurant type environment, where they can be more involved in the production side of things.
Okay. So a student getting food at one of our elementary sites wouldn't, how would that work? So
I give you a little demonstration.
Yeah, walk
here.
me through it.
So it actually looks something like this. We've ordered portable desks. So on a day that we do not have a salad bar, the portable desk with the NSA 3 would be at the end of the line. As the students come through, your clicker will track the students. You no longer need to know the students' names.
Okay.
So on a salad bar day, this portable desk would be behind the salad bar, and you will go ahead and record the students as they come through. What you have to do, if we had the POS system or not, you have to make sure that all students that leave the counter have a reimbursable meal. So what this has really done is added another line of defense, where before the NSA 1 had to make sure, and the NSA 3 was checking the students when they come in. Now we're checking the students after they get their meal, and they're not having to put their numbers in. So yes, it will be faster.
And I had another question. Thank you for answering that. You have in your report adapting to the needs of Generation Z students. And you talked about some pictures of foods. What other things are adapting to the needs? This is the first time I've heard Generation Z, but I guess that makes sense because we've been through X and Y. So so we're on Z. And so so we pretty much know this is Generation Apple and iPod kids. So what does that mean other than those things?
So what we do, and we really invested heavily in this year, is a lot of student taste tests. We're out at the sites, and we're really seeing as we get samples from vendors, and we're sold that how much the students will like it. Well, we're taking it right to the students and finding out if they like it or not. And so then if they do, we're actually progressing out, turning that into photos, continuing to work on updating our website. We also plan on adding the digital monitors to the K through 6 sites as well, to really broadcast the specials that we have. It shows fitness, surfing, soccer, etc.
And then one last question on addressing student needs. Do we have any mechanism to address students who have religious dietary restrictions, halal or kosher?
So absolutely. When I started in 1995, we probably had one or two medical notes or religious exemptions. Now we average about anywhere between 350 and 450 a year. So yes, we offer vegan meals. We offer, this year we're starting into halal type meals to actually work on that as well. So we have all of that has changed from gluten, religious, again, 350 to 450 when we started at 1 to 2 23 years ago.
Great, thank you. Yeah, Trustee West.
You talked about making sure monitoring to making sure that the students are taking the eligible meals. I know in the past students in some programs were not allowed to take only the foods they wanted. They had to take the complete package even though they only wanted one item. Do we anticipate a lot of wasted food, and is there anything we can do to prevent that?
So when we talk about what they have to take, it is offer versus serve, and yes, they do have to take a certain amount, but we do have recycle bins now that we put at every site. So when we get into the fruits and vegetables, we recycle that. When we get into foods that proteins, etc., that we don't want to recycle because of liability issues. So we look at that when we plan out the menu, but we really enforce the recycle bins and allow other students to take those items that are left over.
Thank you. Any more questions for Mr. Atwell? All right, thank you. We're going to go to the audience. There might be some more questions. Thank you for your time and your report on this. Any questions from the audience? Yes, Ms. Barrera. Oh, sorry.
Debbie Barrera, Parent Union, and on behalf of the parents, no, I'm not going to be a bearer of bad news today, but since 2014, I have been voicing on behalf of the parents' concerns. And so the presentation was good, but I have some questions. First question would be, Mr. Chris Atwell, you quoted 31 sites will be universal free meals, if I've got it right. Would this include our preschoolers? Because I have been visiting several elementary sites, and they actually had to open up Garrison for preschoolers because preschoolers need to eat too while they're at school for whatever reasons. Parents are voicing their preschoolers, homeless parents, just in general, the fosters. That's important for our preschoolers to receive meals as well. So that is a notion to entertain. I am in Ceres District, and I hear students a lot here, but parents are able to go and sit. It's twice a year. I've had the honors of being out there, and parents get to taste and see what's good for their children versus what the students want. And so that's something that we would, on behalf of parents, ask that the district opens up for the parents and community. Again, 2016, May, we had Shackelford. Several parents came forth, and they were voicing the concerns of just unsanitized cafeterias. We were asked if we can go in community. We were denied. So hopefully that request would be open again so that we can feel reassured that our children are getting the nutrition. And I'll tell you why. Long lines versus time management, poor quality of service. We would like, as parents, to improve that area. Thank you.
Thank you.
My first question is, if we're doing universal lunches and breakfast meals now, do the parents still have to fill out an application for free meals now, or is that gone with the wind that we now have that? Because I noticed that in the Downey packet there was the application for free meals that was sent home, well, mailed home to the students. So I'm just curious about that. The other issue that I'd like to address is the fact that we have afternoon kindergartners. And when I taught kindergarten, I always told my parents that they were welcome to come in the morning and have a breakfast meal if they were free meals, and they could have the lunch meal. Now the parents are being told if you're morning and you get the breakfast meal, you can't have the afternoon meal, the lunch meal. And so I would like to be sure that our kinders are being able to have access to those 2 meals a day, because for some of our children, those are their most important, critical meals of the day. And they have been not getting that. So I would really like to make sure that that's understood. And thirdly, to increase our students eating more food rather than wasting that food, is it possible that we can give some kind of nutritional classes to our students so that they will be more inclined to buy into eating the meals? Thank you.
All right, there's just a couple questions from, oh, go ahead. Mr. Wilson.
Good afternoon and congratulations. I have a major problem. Do all the students eat the same, all the high school students eat the same food? Because my granddaughter, I don't know for sure, I haven't checked it out, at Franklin, they eat pizza every Friday, she told me. And as far as I'm concerned, pizza is junk food, you know. And the thing about it, it excites me and it upset me. When they built Enoch School out there, they overspent the money. And then they took some of the best teachers from all the schools and sent to Enoch's. And that was wrong. All the kids should get an equal education. We paying for that. And the thing about it, if the kid don't want to eat the food, why give it to him and waste it? Because if Franklin eat certain food and another school eats certain food, why don't they eat the same food every day? And I bet you, I haven't been out there, Enoch School eat better food than the kids over at Franklin. And the thing about it, proper food is the right thing to eat. I eat good, you know, and that's why I'm healthy. But the thing about it, we need to check these people out, and I'd like to know how much money they spend on each high school for the food. And I don't understand how you get these contracts. And we need to check in that food service over there and where they cook the food at, and make sure all the kids are being treated equal and eating the same type of food, you know what I mean? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Atwell, maybe you could address some of those questions or issues.
So I'll start with child development programs. The child development program is not under our umbrella. We vend that program, but we work with them and help them wherever we can. We met with them last week as they prepare for their audit and work with them to get ready. But again, that's not a program that's directly under our purview. As far as parents tasting, they could taste if we're having a sample or if we have a taste testing, but the regulations are that they cannot eat the federal meal program. That makes it a meal that's not allowable, and that is not a Modesto City School policy. That's a USDA policy. As far as sanitation of the cafeteria, most school districts have one health inspection annually. We actually have, not only do we get one, but we have our own HACCP technician that conducts an additional 2 health inspections annually, so we get 3. Also, the reports from Stanislaus County, they're available online, and with one person in our school district that focuses only on food sanitation, I'm very confident in the sanitation of our schools. On the applications, that is a little more complicated when we talk about the 31 of the 34 schools. While the CEP schools will not have to fill out lunch applications, they will need to fill out a household income form not related to the Nutrition Services Department. It's related to LCFF funding. We're working with Melanie McCleary on that. For the first 2 years, only new students in the district will need to fill out the household income forms. We have those. We've again, we've worked with Melanie. We will process them for the district and bill the district, but for the first 2 years, they will not have to collect them from all students, just new students. And let's see, I'm trying to think if I missed anything.
The meals, breakfast and lunch for kindergartners.
Breakfast and lunch for kindergartners, absolutely they can eat. As far as the principal's scheduled bus schedules, we don't control that, but if they want to come into the cafeteria, absolutely anytime. 1 meal, 2 meals, that's fine.
So kindergarten students can get both meals if they're eligible.
Absolutely.
And
I remember a few years ago we would have some that would come in the morning, and before their bus would leave, they would get a meal in the afternoon. So we can make that happen. We're able to do that. It's really about the school. I'm not sure how that's working.
And then Mr. Wilson made a point about that we're serving different foods at different high schools. Can you address that?
So we're serving the same food at all high schools, but there's multiple options.
Right.
From vegan salads, Caesar salads, pizza burritos, pineapple. I think we offer 5 or 6 entrees daily, so that varies at every school based on what they would select, but it is the same at 9 through 12 sites and a slight variation at 7 and 8 sites, but all 7 through 12 sites have multiple entrees offered. At elementary sites, it's 1 entree.
And all right, we'll come back to the board. We're still out and open. And then one last question that I believe Ms. Williams had was the increasing, it was about education, increasing consumption of good food as opposed to, how do we do that? And I think you addressed that in your report about some of the things you're offering in terms of education.
So one of the things that we worked with in the past when we went out to schools and we talked about the education, a lot of times we talked about in the science curriculum working that in. We do have a registered dietitian on staff. We not only the medical notes that I talked about, we answer parents' questions. So we're absolutely open, and our dietitian has been out when asked to go to schools. A teacher at Roosevelt has had our dietitian out before, so we're absolutely open to that.
Great. Thank you for answering all those questions. I think you hit them all. Thank you, Mr. Atwell. Is there another question, comment from the audience, Mr. Wilson?
Excuse me. You always beat around the bush. He never answered any of my questions. I asked him, did all the high schools get the same food?
And that question was answered, Mr. Wilson.
He didn't answer.
Yes, it was. It was answered. He said, yeah, they all get the same food. There's different things that are offered. And so that was answered.
No, he didn't answer. I listened at him. One of your board members shook her head. What I'm saying, if Modesto High eats chicken on a Friday, all the high schools eat chicken on Friday. If Modesto High turkey on a Tuesday, all the high schools eat turkey on Tuesday.
There's different options at the high schools on each day that they have. Only the elementary schools have the same food served on each day. So they have a menu that is distributed at the beginning of the month. Am I correct on that, Mr. Atwell?
So for the high schools, it's
Do you want to come up to the microphone?
At the high schools, it's a standing menu that might be changed 3 or 4 times a year, but you might see a matrix of 30 options offered throughout the week. So a student could take chicken nuggets 3 or 4 days a week, or the student may never take chicken nuggets. So they're all offered different items, but they're absolutely the same at the 9 through 12 sites. It's just you could go all week and 2 students could not have the same items.
Yes. And that's because of the student's choice.
Correct. It's a choice, and you get to select an entree, you get to select a fruit, and whatever you choose that meets, it can be chicken, it can be a burrito, it can be vegan, it can be chicken Caesar, anything that meets the category of an entree.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. I think your question's been answered.
No, it haven't. I want to know what I'm saying. If Modesto High School eat chicken on a Friday, do all the high schools eat chicken on a Friday?
That question's been answered.
No, it
And
didn't
so,
answer.
yeah, that question's been answered.
Not
There's a
to me.
variety of different things that are offered. But I'd ask you now that I think that unless you have another question, do you have another question tonight for us?
That question. That's what's wrong with the school board. You answered your way. You didn't answer my question. If Modesto High School eats pizza on a Friday, do Enoch High eat pizza on a Friday? All the high schools eat the same thing. And the thing what I'm talking about, Modesto High do not eat the quality of food that Enoch High eat. I'm not up there.
That is not a correct assumption that Modesto High has different quality food than Enoch's High School. All the food is made in our food service center. Is that correct, Mr. Atwell?
So some is made at the center, and some would be made at the schools. But it would be right when you state that the food is the same. If it was chicken, it would be the same chicken that Modesto High would get, and Enoch's would get the same chicken. It may be made at the center, or it may be made at the school sites, but it absolutely is from the same manufacturer and from the same vendor.
Okay. I think that answers your question on that. And
Let me put it this way. I'll make it very simple to you. What do I need to do to get a menu from all the high schools for 1 month? And I figured out myself. If I had a menu from each
we can get that for you.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, any more questions?
I just really would like to encourage a curriculum specifically for nutrition, because if you're waiting for it to come in the science curriculum, it may come in the middle of the year or sometime at the end of the year or sometime maybe never. And I think that you need to have a specific curriculum that's given to the students at the very beginning of the year, especially at our elementary level, where we have such a waste of food and we only have one item for the students to have. There's no choices there. So I think it's imperative that we train our students some good eating habits and teach them the value of that food so that they will be more embraced in eating it rather than throwing it in the trash, because there's a lot of waste at the elementary level.
Thank you. All right, any more questions or comments from the public? All right, that comes back to, this is just a report. Any comments from board members? Trustee Walker.
I want to thank you for the report. Mr. Zerly, me and you still have an appointment we have to keep. You invited me to do a tour late last year and the school year was over, so I still haven't done my tour. I'm more interested now than I ever was. I believe my time working concession stands at high schools no longer feels as important because we're not running out 20,000 pounds of produce. But I think it's extraordinarily impressive how many people we feed. And I think the other thing that I was concerned about you addressed with the all-day lunch, which has sort of had me a bit nervous given how many students are going to be eating at one time at Enoch's. I think that display concession that you showed makes me relax a bit, because I've never sort of processed knowing how many children are flowing out of those doors and how they're all going to get there. I think that was a good take. I think it's an impressive operation across the board when you look at how many students you guys are feeding twice a day, summer programs, using local produce. I'm very interested in that tour now because this is a huge operation. And I think not acknowledging all that work, again, 2 thumbs up, hands up. Unbelievable amount of work that goes into feeding all these children every day.
Anyone else? Yes, Trustee Marks?
I always look forward to your reports. I've heard them for 21 years, and not every year, but almost every year. And it impresses me how you're able to meet all the nutritional guidelines. I remember when they all turned upside down, and it was really different with Governor Schwarzenegger and all the changes that you had to make, and also make it not be in the red, which was really difficult with the cost of food and how things were changing, and then finding food items that our students would really enjoy tasting. And one time you brought some of those to our board meeting, and we got to taste some of those new items that you had. And I appreciate the creativity of the staff and for your leadership to be able to find foods that our students really enjoy, because I want them to like eating the good food that meets all those nutritional guidelines that that we have to meet with the U.S. Department, Food Department, U.S. I can't remember what I want to call it USDA, but okay, that was correct. Okay, and just that and then how you're working to help get the lines to go faster. I just know that students have complained in the past about how long it takes to get their food, and it takes their whole lunch time to actually stand in line. But that we've made that more efficient, and maybe with the new free lunch program that we're doing, it'll even make it more efficient. So, and thank you for trying to meet all the guidelines, or the students that are asking for exemptions. That's impressive to meet that many students that change over the years. And I just appreciate all that you do to ensure that our students are fed well every day, and that and how we're recycling. I know we worked last year or the year before with the city on some of our recycling, and I appreciate how you've found ways to do that with our food, because I know it can be expensive.
So I will address, and again, I was going to say this tomorrow, but I will let the board know tonight. Starting next year, we will be replacing our polystyrene trays with compostable trays, starting the first day of school at K through 6 sites, and after about a month at 7 through 12 sites when we're out of the existing stock. It's a 95% reduction in polystyrene usage.
Yay.
Yes,
that's
huge,
exciting.
but I remember it being very costly. That's expensive, but that's great. But I know that will help with the new laws that the state has implemented on recycling. So appreciate all of your creativity and how you're working to meet the needs of our students. And we'll have to see as a board if we do have nutrition in our elementary schools, so we can help them understand nutrition better in our curriculum. But I believe there's some of it in some of the, well, we used to do PE, and when we did our outdoor ed, it was part of that. So I don't know if that's still there, but that was good. So thank you. And I hope when you do the tour, you will let us know so we can also come and visit, because the facility is incredible. So I appreciate that. Okay, good. Thank you.
Well,
thank you, Mr. Atwell.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Atwell, for your thorough report, and I encourage my fellow board members to go out and to tour the center. I did it a few years ago, and it's incredible, the amount of food and the technology, and what we're doing is incredible. And as a parent, I just want to say thank you, because on days when you didn't get a lunch packed or whatever, there's something available, and it's something my kids will eat. And it's good food, so it's very much appreciated, and the variety is appreciated. The kids enjoy being able to pick something a la carte, and as I've had my kids in the system, I've got high schoolers now. I've watched it improve, and I've watched their comments say that it's improved, and what they've been able to be offered. So thumbs up for my two little foodies, and thank you for your work on that. All right, that takes us to the report of B7, the report on Modesto City Schools immunization policies and exclusions from schools. And I'd like to turn this over to Dr. Noguchi.
And Mark Herbst will be presenting the information tonight for us.
Thank you very much. District Nurse Aurora Lecchidini is going to be assisting me with the presentation, and I think I may need a clicker. At the April 16, 2018 board meeting, Trustee Brown made a request for an update on our immunization policies and the number of students excluded from school as a result of not being properly immunized. To give a brief recent history on what events led to our current policies, in 2010, California experienced an outbreak of whooping cough, which caused mandates in public and private schools. This ensured students only attended school if they have proof of required immunizations, a medical exemption, or a personal beliefs exemption. More recently, as some may remember, there was an outbreak of measles in Anaheim. As a result, in 2016, public school health law changed once again. As a result, in order to remain compliant, a student must either have proof of immunization or a medical exemption signed off by a specific licensed healthcare provider. Make sure I got that one. Modesto City Schools' current board policies complies with current California law regarding immunizations. The changes eliminated any new personal beliefs exemptions and only allowed those grandfathered in up until the next grade span. These grade spans are typical milestone in a student's education, such as preschool to kindergarten or 6th to 7th grade. Our student information system uses real-time data, so gathering historical numbers on exclusions is a challenge. In any event, it's estimated that 400 to 600 students per year are excluded for at least one day based on not meeting the California state requirements. The overwhelming majority of those students are moving from 6th to 7th grade, where they have an additional Tdap vaccination as well as a second dose of varicella when they turn 13 years of age. When a student is excluded, they are referred back to their healthcare provider, local pharmacy, or public health. The length of exclusion can vary between 1 day and 1 month, depending on how quickly a student can be seen for the necessary immunizations. Obviously, health offices are much busier in the beginning of the year. Therefore, obviously, you're going to see a little bit of a longer time on the turnaround on the immunization. In addition, Stanislaus County does have a shortage of healthcare providers, putting a strain on providers when there are a large number of students requiring immunizations. And also remember, guys, it's a California law, so it's not exclusive to Modesto City Schools. Other people have to follow the same law as well. Modesto City Schools Health Services takes a very active role in trying to prevent student exclusions. Kinder registration materials alert families of the need for immunizations. In terms of the 7th grade issue, Health Services begins notifying families in January of the students. Oh, did I? Thank you, Mike. They begin notifying families in January of the student's 6th grade year regarding the 7th grade immunization requirements. Parents also acknowledge their understanding of the requirements when they ballot for 7th grade. School nurses and health services continue with reminders throughout the 6th grade year and over the summer months through phone dialers and letters home. In terms of moving forward, MCS will continue to take an active role through traditional means in order to try to prevent exclusions to the greatest extent possible. In addition, this year we have partnered with Golden Valley Health Center to offer a clinic right before school starts, targeting that 6th to 7th grade, or the 6th graders move into 7th grade. We look to continue to partner with that in the future. In addition, we will continue to explore the idea of us doing our own immunization clinics with our own nurses in the future. In any event, Aurora Licciardini, our district nurse, and I are available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Herbst. Are there any questions of Mr. Herbst or Ms. Licciardini? All right, Trustee Brown.
So I'd like to find out if a parent chooses not to immunize their students, and are they turned away from public schools?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I don't know if you just saw the article that was in the Modesto Bee just
did.
recently. Yeah,
And we also received an article, information article that came just this past week in our packets.
Some may be opting for homeschool in other environments, but yes, that's correct. If you're not immunized, you are not supposed to attend a public school. Correct.
So do we know how many students are turned away each year?
I don't know about a turn away to where they don't come back. I don't know if we track it that way. I would honestly say, based on the knowledge I have, the majority that are turned away do end up coming back. To me, the issue is how quickly they can come back depending on when they're turned away. But to be honest with you, my knowledge, there's not a lot that say, okay, I have to follow this, and then they go somewhere else. Just based on what limited information I have on it, Trustee Brown.
Because I know there are families who just choose no immunizations whatsoever for their children. Does that mean their only option is homeschool?
Yep.
Pretty much, yes.
That's the law.
Okay.
Any other questions? Trustee Lopez.
I just want to know more about the immunization clinics with Golden Valley. What are the dates? How many sites are we going to be at?
Not to put Aurora on the spot. Aurora, do you happen to have those dates off the top of your head?
It will be the Friday before school starts. It's going to be at Roosevelt Junior High.
Anything else? Trustee Walker?
No, I was pointing that way. I have a
Okay. Okay. I had a question, and it goes right on to the piggybacks with Trustee Lopez. How will we publicize this Roosevelt clinic? Because I think this is really important, and I'll comment after we say that. But go ahead.
letters have been sent home to all the parents of kids who, according to our data, still need more immunizations. In the letter is the information regarding the clinic. There's a flyer there, and also there's an auto dialer that will be going out at least twice before school starts.
Great. Yeah, Trustee Lopez?
Yeah, I know that we have the date on Roosevelt, but how about with we have 2 Golden Valley site-based centers at the schools, one at Hanshaw, one at Robinson Road. What are we doing with them? Do we have any information on that?
It's a good point. Aurora, I don't know if we can operate one out of the Hanshaw Center. Do you
I
think?
did speak with them, and Golden Valley felt this was the most efficient way of vaccinating large amounts of students.
And I appreciate that effort and partnership that you have worked up with Golden Valley. I think Roosevelt is centrally located and can serve a lot of our needs of our students. I think that when you were hitting on something when you were talking about there's students, what we're trying to capture is the students that are going to miss school that would be getting vaccinated, that have been in our school, that are vaccinated up to that point of 7th grade, and we're trying to make sure they don't miss school. Is that where we're at with this?
Absolutely. When you look at the 400 to 600 number I quoted, Aurora, correct me, I mean, I would say 75 to 80% is when they're coming into the 7th grade, when the 2 new immunization requirements, when the additional shots are basically warranted. So they meet the requirement in elementary. It's that transition up into 7th grade.
And so we're trying to set up this clinic and trying to address those students there. And in terms of students that their parents aren't wanting them to be immunized, we didn't capture them in elementary most likely anyway, right?
Correct. They by this time, considering when the new law took effect, if they didn't want to be immunized, they would more than likely they're not in our schools currently. Yeah, they're not in our schools.
And there's really nothing we can do because that's a parent decision and it's California law.
Correct. California is one of I can't remember, maybe 3 or 4 states, maybe 5 that has similar type of immunization requirements. But you're right, it's California law.
Okay. That's I mean, I think this is great. That's where we need to focus. I don't want any students missing days that are already our students that have already been with us K through 6. There is no reason to miss a day of 7th grade because they didn't get immunized. And so that's really where we put our focus. And so I think this is great. I really applaud our efforts in this way. And if we can continue to figure out, does this work? And how do we get the word out? And this is where we need to focus because they shouldn't miss a day of school. These are already immunized kids. They just need to be up to date. And that's really what I want to make sure we understand on this. So, all right, good deal. Are there any comments or questions from the audience? Seeing none. All right, back to the board for comments. All right. Are you good? I'm good. Okay. All right. Thanks, Ms. Mitchell. All right, back to the board for comment. Trustee Walker.
Okay, so my comment, because it's not a question, was going to be back to essentially what we just mentioned to Trustee Brown, is that my relationship with homeschool parents, they left the public school system as soon as this law passed. It's also the only, and I agree with you about not missing school a day. Yeah. Could not agree more. It's also one of the only Modesto City Board policies I voted no on, and I will have a house party as soon as Senator Pan is out of office because it was a solution to a problem that really didn't exist, and I think it highlighted an issue that parents then pulled back from because they raised the volume on this so loudly that you had parents that I know that have pulled children out of public schools just on this issue because they don't want to be involved in a process, but they are gone, and I don't expect them to come back, and I'll have my house party as soon as he's gone.
All right, any more comments? All right, thank you, Mr. Herbst, and thank you, Ms. Licadini, for your work on this. I continue to look forward to seeing us getting the kids immunized. I don't want to miss any school for this.
And again, I hate to be Mr. Positive 2 times, but I do want to publicly acknowledge the work that Aurora Licadini does as our district nurse. Her efforts and her commitment to our kids, to the district, and the health of our kids is just, it's very, very commendable. So I wanted to at least address that with her.
Thank you.
Aurora.
We have an amazing team. Thank you. All right. We can go on to the next item, or we could take a quick break. We've been going for 2 hours, so I usually, if we need a break.
Right after this one, so
Okay, right after this one. So then we'll go ahead with item B8. And I'd like to turn this over to Dr. Noguchi.
And we'll turn it over to Mr. Zerly.
Thank you, Dr. Noguchi. So far tonight, we've heard a few comments centered around what I would call 3 T's, and that would be trust, truth, and transparency. And this next agenda item, I believe, and we believe, would help the district focus on improving our relationship with our stakeholders in those 3 areas. OpenGov would, as you've seen, or I believe most of you have seen a presentation from OpenGov, to provide a platform that really allows the district to communicate openly and transparently with members of the community on all aspects of district operations. And when we first talked about this, it was centered around our financial data and also our facility information related to the 2 bond measures. And so it's a very powerful tool, as you've seen. We do have Paul Felton here who presented to you regarding OpenGov, if there's any questions. But the district does recommend an agreement with OpenGov for this platform in order to provide real-time, transparent data and communication.
Great. Are there any questions for Mr. Zierli? All right, I have a couple. So, all right, I'm totaling up the cost for this contract. It's a 5-year contract, and it's totals up to, if I'm doing the math right, $227,050. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
And so my question is it's a 5-year term for the contract. Is there a way out of that if we don't find it working out for us? Because that's a significant sum.
Sure. And we chose 5 years because it reduced the annual cost
Yes.
significantly. But I don't have the agreement in front of me, and I don't remember, Paul, if there was an out before 5 years or not, if you could answer that.
Good evening.
Members of the board, Superintendent and Mr. Zealy. Currently, the way the contract is structured, there's no out for convenience. It is a 5-year contract. We basically structured it so that you're getting the value of a longer term versus a higher cost, probably about 25% for like 1 year versus a 3 or a 5 year. So we decided to do sort of the longer term. And the way our software is structured, it's called software as a service. So every 2.5 weeks, we basically are pushing improvements to the software. So a lot of those costs that maybe you're not seeing directly are actually built into the older software models where you're paying for maintenance and upgrades and these things, whereas our part of that cost that might seem a lot now is actually the software is actually being improved every 3 weeks. That's kind of the new model of how software is sold these days.
So the improvements are built into the flat costs we pay annually anyway. So you're absorbing those improvement costs in that flat sum.
Correct.
Okay. Yes, Trustee Brown.
So we're moving rapidly forward towards November with the bond measure. But I see that this contract would start August 1st. Is there, am I seeing something incorrect?
No, that's
Okay,
correct.
so it's to start August 1st. So my question is, do we really need this prior to passing the bond? Should it not start December 1st?
So go ahead.
I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not sure I can speak to a need for passage of the bond measure at this point in time, but I don't see this as a requirement for a successful bond measure, if that's what you're asking.
No, From what I'm reading in the board report, it says that it's going to provide transparency to the public for how we're using the bond funds.
No,
Is it tied to that or no?
No, it would provide transparency to the public for telling our story as to the needs of our facilities and the need for why we are asking for bond measures or why we have placed bond measures on the ballot in November. So this is a way for us to tell our story in a way, it could be for anything. It could be for facilities. It could be for financial information. It could be for anything, any other data that we have related to the district that we want to share with our stakeholders. If that answered your question.
I think it does. So,
and then after the fact, then yes, we could use it. After the successful measures, then we could use it to, again, be transparent in reporting out the use of the bond proceeds.
May I comment, Trustee Brown? Yeah, so as we've been engaging with the district for almost a year now, some of the improvements that I mentioned that we've actually just developed within the last year is actually direct citizen engagement and getting feedback from citizens. And so one of the reasons why we talked about, we kind of actually waited until some of the dust settled with the superintendent and getting things straight and understanding if the bond was going to go to the board or to the ballot in November is actually being factual as a district and telling the story with data and with factual information so that you're engaging with your stakeholders on what the bond could be about, what you're going to be paying for with that bond, so that you, between now and November, you're educating the community with some of these tools as well.
I'd like to add something as well. My understanding from the presentation with you and with Mr. Zerly a few weeks ago, this is really a backbone to building a data dashboard. I really see two parallel tracks. There's the business side of the house, which is what we're referring to tonight, but there's also student outcome data and student performance data. So this would provide a platform to be able to begin building a principal data dashboard. For instance, the power of that principal turns on the computer in the morning. They have real-time data as to what's their chronic absenteeism, what's their ADA, what we've semester just finished, what was their DNF rate, which teachers, as far as attendance in their classrooms, SBAC scores, benchmark scores, so academic data. So principals have at their fingertips, now this is certainly deep into the 5 years, 2-year plan, they have access to real-time data to be able to make decisions. So while yes, it's the business side, which can get up and running much quicker, my understanding from this is there is a backbone and tools to be able to build the academic dashboard, which would be very powerful.
And following up on that, would there be an additional cost if we're doing both sides, the academic and the business side of the district? No, that's included in that flat fee.
It is.
Okay.
We're not a model where we charge per user or by data set, or you get it all.
And what appears on the data that is going to appear publicly is data that we give you, and you figure out how to present it?
Correct. So we'll work with you to determine what you want to make public and how you want to display it, and also to the superintendent's point about a dashboard that maybe internal users at school sites could use as well to look at test score data, things that might be in the weeds for maybe the public, things that they can really better make some data-driven decisions using that internally.
Okay. Any other questions for? Did you have a question?
It was answered. I just wanted to say it wasn't all about financial. It was also about student achievement and student data. So that was really interested to me. So that part I was really concerned about, and then being able to share the financials publicly. So I do have a question on the financials publicly. Sure. So when we share those, are you able to make easy to understand graphs and charts. I know Mr. Zerley's been doing that, and I know it's a lot to do.
It's
but
it's a large time saver as well, and it's often hard to sell on like, oh, this is going to save you a lot of time. But really, when you look at what most K-12 districts throughout the state of California with their LCAP and their all of the data, it's in a DAT file that's a 200-300 page PDF that nobody understands. Whereas ours, it would take me about 6 or 7 seconds to drill into the school's PERS and STIRS expenses over the last 10 years, and you can really see the story that it's telling, and you can add some narrative to that and really direct your citizens to understanding like why costs are going up and revenues are down and things like that. So very easy, yes.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Yes, Trustee Walker.
Okay, so I'm like your biggest fan since the day I saw this at the Facilities Need Workshop. But I think I want to highlight on sort of one of you talking about the flat fee and the update thing. As the guy that's also writes software for a living, what we're really talking about is what we would call a release, in the sense that we roll on a 3 or 4 week cycle where we finish development, we finish testing, we push the software out as a release, and it goes out to everybody, and you see it transparently overnight. It's actually cleaner than a Microsoft update by a long shot if you're doing it sort of the way I think about it. Do I sort of have that picture right in my head?
You do. We do them every 2.5 weeks. They're called a sprint, but a lot of times,
okay,
some of
now
the
we're
times
talking the same language.
You won't recognize them maybe right away, or it's little things, but it's basically keeping the software up to date so that the usability is enhanced and so forth.
Okay, so now I got another question because you used the word sprint. Because now we're talking about Story, Sprint, GitHub, using Git tools, Atlassian, or do you guys use a different model?
We use a lot of different models on the sort of an engineering back.
I'm just because now we're deep in the weeds.
I
Probably
know,
lost everybody
I know.
here.
You lost me.
But okay, but I do think that there's a lot of value here, and I think part of what he says is as we go forward, they'll do the releases and they'll push forward. The state's going to change how we report. They've already said LCAP is moving to a different model next year. There's already questions about accountability. Having access to real-time data that's current was the big selling point to me on this particular tool at the Facilities Need Workshop, and being able to communicate that message out to the public in a rapid fashion so that, and you use the term I love the most, a data-driven decision, sort of requires us as a governance team to be able to see the data in real time and not be looking backwards 6 months to when we get the data from when it was actually out. And I find it valuable, and I appreciate your answer to my question. I understand what you're doing now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more questions for Mr. Zierli or and I forgot your last name.
Paul Felton.
Felton,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Felton. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
And Mr. Felton or Mr. Zierli, any more questions? All right. One question. Okay, Trustee Brown.
So what is the district's responsibility then to feed you the information so that the data can be updated? How do we cooperate with you?
So currently we're going to be creating a database integration. It's a one-way, so we'll be pulling from the district with a certain like a query, so that the data that's flowing from QSS will be flowing to OpenGov. Now, as we work together, this is not like a cookie cutter model, but as we work with the district to help you guys tell your story, what departments will we work with to get some data out of these so-called silos to manually get them into OpenGov, but maybe on like a monthly basis. So we'll just work with you over time to determine like what databases do we need to be looking at. How can we, currently your contract will include integrating with the QSS database to get the backbone of all the chart of accounts data and the general ledger data, but then we'll determine with you guys what next steps for getting some of the student-based or nutritional or any of that into the platform.
So follow-up question to that is, are we staffed to the point that we can provide that information so that we can pull the effective data out?
I believe so. I've had my staff involved at this point, but also Cindy Mentor has taken a look at it, if there is if there is staff needs, obviously we would work through that, but I have not been made aware of any staff needs at this point in time. So
Right, any more questions? Thank you, Mr. Felton. Thank
you.
Mr. Zierli. We go to the audience now. Are there any questions? Yes, Ms. Barrera.
Debbie Barrera, We Are La Raza Parents Union. As a stakeholder, I followed the LCAP from the beginning. And I always heard, well, we don't got the data or we're not updated. And so how could we put a price of $227,000 on trust, truth, and transparency if we're going to move forward to this new beginning? And so I'm in favor of this because it's going to only get better from here. So why not continue to invest in what Ms. Noguchi said here, which I appreciate, the backbone to the data dashboard. That's what we're in need of, a solid foundation of a backbone. And so I'm all in favor for it. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, back to the board for comment and action.
Yep. Okay, go ahead.
I don't have a comment, but I'd love to make the motion since I'm the #1 fan here.
Second. All right, the motion has been made by Trustee Walker and seconded by Trustee Marks. All those in favor, state aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. All right, then the motion passes 5-1, and I think we will go ahead and take a break at this time. record. And so this takes us to item 8A, which is item C3, which was approval of services agreement with TransFinder and Zoner Systems, Inc. And Trustee Brown asked for this to be heard as a discussion item.
So let me just.
Do you want to explain why you want what you wanted, so that maybe we could focus the report?
So the reason that I asked that this be pulled from consent and brought to the public is because I felt like it's important for the public to realize what a positive step this is towards ensuring some student safety in areas that we haven't been able to track in the past. So I wanted the public to be aware of the impact that this item can have on the safety of all children riding the school buses.
All right, I'd like to turn the matter over to then Dr. Noguchi.
You know, I first heard about this, actually it was on Thursday when we had our consult meeting, and I do have experience with not this particular product, but ways in which we can track our students. You know, through the school year, there's oftentimes you hear stories of, you know, the 5-year-old or the 7-year-old that you can't find, they're not home, and inadvertently they've been dropped off at another school and they're sitting in an office somewhere, and again, wires get crossed. The power here is that we're going to be able to know where all of our kids are at any time, and so we can avoid, one, the fear and the frustration for parents, and the fear and the frustration for any administrator too. So I do think it's a powerful tool for our work.
All right, are there any questions from the board on this? And are there any comments or questions from the public? Seeing none, then we'll come back to the board for action.
I wonder if Mr. Zerly could just explain so that the public is aware of what we're referring to. What happens with this program?
So Dr. Noguchi is correct. This would improve the safety and efficiency of our pupil transportation by again providing us with real-time data as to the location of our students and the bus stops where they're either getting on our buses or getting off our buses, as well as our equipment itself. Where is our bus broken down somewhere? Is it and we did actually, this has been about a year process that we've been looking at this, and we did go tour Twin Rivers Unified School District, and this is prior to Dr. Noguchi. This was September, October of last year, and to see, I mean, they're a district very similar to us, the number of students, the number of routes, and to see the challenges and that they've gone through in implementing this system, and the benefits far outweighed and overwhelmed any problems that they were dealing with, because again it provided a measure for our families, our parents, to know exactly where and when their children were getting off the bus. And so this is, we believe, as Trustee Brown has pointed out, this is a positive. This is something that, yes, there's a cost assigned with it. Again, we're asking for a lease in order to keep down the initial annual investment for this. Otherwise, it would have been a much larger one-time amount that we would be asking the board to approve. But we believe this is the direction to go in providing data as far as location data for our families.
All right, any comments from the board? All right, I'm looking for a motion. It's been moved by Trustee Brown and seconded by Trustee West. All those in favor state aye. Aye. The motion passes unanimously. This takes us then to item D2, which is our new B2. And so this is a request by Trustee Marks to put this on to discussion. It's approval of revision of passport to literature lists, grades 7 through 12. And again, I'd like to turn this matter over to Dr. Noguchi.
Actually, Marla Mack will be leading this.
Thank you.
And I'm going to pass it on to Senior Director Brad Godot, who is over our ELA division.
Thank you.
Good evening, Board President Newman, trustees, Superintendent Dr. Noguchi. The Passport to Literature list, I think as you're all aware, is our way of vetting the novels that our students are reading, that our teachers are putting forth out into their classrooms. This particular agenda item started, I want to say probably first semester, beginning of the second semester, with discussions at our ELA department chair meetings, district department chair meetings, in which each site's representative from their ELA department comes and provides additional novels that a teacher at their site may have requested. A little background: if a novel is not on our Passport to Literature, a teacher cannot assign that novel for use in the classroom. It has to go through this process in order to use. So some of the issues that started to arise at 912 was with the adoption of StudySync. And within the core curriculum of StudySync, there are excerpts of novels that are used. And one of the comments that teachers were bringing to the table at our department chair meetings were, hey, this excerpt has really gotten the attention of my students, but the novel isn't on the Passport to Literature, so I can't tap into that curiosity because it's not provided for in our Passport to Literature. So that wasn't the only reason, but that's one reason some of these novels may be on the list as coming forward. Others could be that the teacher just has a novel that they want to add and they want to teach for a variety of different reasons. The process involves our ELA coaches. Our ELA coaches have read all of the novels that are on this list. However, they are not voting members of that committee. They are just part of that conversation. Our teachers, most likely our department chairs, our ELA department chairs, are involved in reading the novels, and then when they come back and they report out on the novel about whether or not they feel it is appropriate and at what grade level. And then we have a conversation about, do we believe that it needs to be annotated? And when a novel is annotated, if a teacher assigns that novel, a notification must go home to parents alluding to why that novel has been annotated. And you can see from the descriptions there, the ones that are asterisked, it gives some information as to why it is annotated. So with that.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Godot?
So I brought this forward because I had concerns about reviewing these myself to be able to vote on them tonight, and because it was such a short notice on being able to look at the books. And I know I've asked in the past to do that. I know this one was later than usual, and so I know I appreciate the review process and how it's done. And when I reviewed some of the books, I couldn't get through all of them, and so I just wanted to be able to talk about that. And I'll share one of them, The Martian, which I've read. I'm familiar with some of these authors and some of the books that are on the list, but The Martian, it says that it has it contains mild profanity and vague sexual innuendos. Because I read the book, it has quite a lot of profanity.
Can I respond to that?
Okay.
My understanding is that there were two versions of The Martian. One is the unedited full text, and then the other version of The Martian is the one that we're including here. I believe that has less of what you might be referring to.
Well, I hope that's the case, because the other one had quite a lot of profanity, and I just didn't believe that that was appropriate for our 7th and 8th graders. And so because of that, and I see it says Classroom Edition, so I just wanted to be able to review some of these books in a little bit more detail, and so I could be confident if parents ask me questions and they want to know. Of course, we can share with them the process, but if I voted for it, then I have to be able to defend it myself, and I like to review them as well as the R-rated movies, and so that's what I've made a commitment to do that. So for me personally, because the time frame was too short, I can't support voting for this tonight, so I didn't know if the board would allow for us to give it 3 more weeks to be able to review it or not. I know it's kind of tight timeline. That's why I was wishing that we had a little bit more time to be able to review these. So that was my request, is if the board would be amiable towards postponing it.
Do you want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to postpone the voting on this.
Do you want to postpone the whole list, or do you have just a few that you want to postpone?
I was gonna postpone the list, but I didn't plan to do that, so I'd have to go through them. But are there certain ones that need to be approved right away?
Well, this list is so our sites can order the novels and get them on. It isn't a major roadblock where, you know, we would not be able to put new curriculum into use or current curriculum into use. It's just teachers are making plans, and they will typically decide out over the course of the year which classes are going to read which novels. So.
Okay, so if the board would be all right with it, then the ones that are.
Do you want to take a minute and because Trustee Lopez has a comment, so maybe you could identify which ones you want to wait on, and then okay, Trustee Lopez.
Sounds good.
No, my question just was if we were to go ahead and approve this now, maybe in 3 weeks when you have more time, and you're like, I want to go back and exclude these three. Would it be better to do that, or to just postpone the whole item in the 3 weeks? That way we get the shipping process started.
Well, the issue is if we do that now and we come back at the next board meeting and decide that one of those novels should be removed based on a closer review, then we might already be in the purchasing pipeline and be out some money. So I would suggest waiting to purchase based on what we have here.
Yes, Trustee Walker?
All right, so only because when I first came in as a parent with a high school student, if I'm not mistaken, and correct me if I'm wrong, that as a parent, we also get a chance to review the book list and the movie list and have the ability to say no for our student. So there is an out as a parent to say no, correct?
That is correct.
And then I guess the second question I would have
for our annotated novels.
Yes.
If they say, hey, you know what, we're not okay with that, then we provide an alternative assignment, and there's no.
Because there was a movie that I was concerned about initially that was R, and then we went and watched it, and we were okay. I think the other question sort of came up in my mind as you were talking. As a parent of a high school program, it makes me wonder, when our kids get, they call these OSRPs, outside reading projects, they sort of go off and choose their own novels. And so there's a second reading component here where the kids just go off and fish on their own. And I know that's one of the things both my daughters do. My oldest certainly goes to the library and just goes and finds stuff and brings it home to read. And as a parent, I should probably look closer, but I got a whole lot more faith. But that component's also here as well, not in this agenda item, but as part of literacy and building up the reading programs. AP doesn't necessarily have a specific list that I'm aware of, and so those teachers are also putting together their reading assignments as well, if I understand the process correct.
Yeah, I don't have it in front of me, but the actual full text of the Passport to Literature includes the recommended novel usage at each grade level. You know, 7th grade will read one novel, 8th grade will read one novel, 9th grade will read 2 novels and one of a selection of Shakespearean plays. So it kind of details it through. And you are correct, Trustee Walker, that the some of our pre-AP, AP, and IB courses have kind of another set of novels and or guidelines that they follow, just depending on the course.
It's just nice to point that it's not all one track, in the sense that depending on where you're at and what you're doing, you could be doing something completely different from this, and the parent still has the right to pull back.
Depends on the teacher and the site as well.
Right. Correct.
This is a menu of novels that a teacher can select from based on their grade level. So there may be one teacher that is passionate about teaching a particular novel, and that might be why it's on here. It wouldn't necessarily mean that that one particular novel is taught across every junior high or every high school.
Right. Yes, and as a parent, we've received those lists when our students were in that, and it is really helpful. But at the time that my students were, we didn't have the annotations. So as a board member, I asked for parents to be more informed, because not all our parents speak English or even know these books, and so many parents don't speak English, and so I feel like we're the guardians of our students' minds and hearts in many ways. And so when I review lists, I'm trying to take in my thoughts of the students that I know and the ones that I've worked with over the years. So that's how I That's just how I'm making this decision.
Trustee Brown has a question.
Yes, and just this evaluative process, I'm curious if we have any books on the list this year that have not previously been approved. Do we know that?
I do not know that off the top of my head. I did a very quick look at a few titles that are on the list now on the board agenda item. They are not currently on the Passport to Literature list.
So to clarify, these books are all new to the passport list because that's why they're on the agenda tonight, right?
As near as I can tell, I know there was discussion about moving a novel from, say, one grade level to another grade level based on our new ELA curriculum. So, you know, for the idea being that an 8th grader at La Loma would not read The Adoration of Jenna Fox and then go to 9th grade at Davis High School and end up having to read the same novel again, which is why we break it down by grade level, or one of the reasons.
All right. Are there any more? We'll come back to the motion because we are actually on question time. We still need to go to the audience. So are there any more questions for Mr. Godot or staff? Thank you. All right. Are there any questions or comments from the audience? Yes. Miss Ray, our bookstore.
Okay, hi. So in looking at this as a way that our Modesto store can offer a solution so that we're not holding up the timeline in terms of, start dates and curriculums, we're able to bring in any title into our store and there's no obligation to buy whatsoever from the district. We have relationships with every publisher. So if you, whatever title, wanted to be previewed, or you don't want to hold up, right? If there's like a voting situation and you just don't want to hold anything up, we're able to get all titles into the store. And when you do create your PO, you're most welcome just, to exclude any titles. So we at the Modesto store can hold all titles and curriculum. And when you're ready to purchase, then that's, whatever you'd like to omit or include in that, then that's fine too. But there is no obligation to buy. In addition, if you did have any, thoughts or concerns about a particular title, we're able to order those in also just for preview and just for annotated. So I'm happy to offer that as well.
Thank you. All right.
I just thought of an important piece of information that might help you make a decision.
Okay.
The Passport to Literature letter that goes home is sent at the beginning of the year. So a student or a teacher must indicate in August if they're going to utilize a novel on the passport. So if that novel is, a parent conceivably could have the time to go do a little more homework on that novel to see if it's actually something that they would want to have their child not be a part of, or feel good about having them be a part of that. So.
Okay. All right. Any more comments from the public? All right. Back to the board for comment and a motion.
So I would ask to approve this excluding these books, and mostly it's based on
Which
age.
books?
And so the books that I'm asking for is Adoration of Jenna Fox, Fever 1793, Trash. So there's a 3 on that side, and there's 3 on the back side. The Elephant Man, I've seen the movie many years ago, 30-something years ago, but I haven't read the book. And In the Time of the Butterflies, and then Necklace and Other Stories. The others I'm pretty familiar with. So if the board would be okay with that, I'm going to review those 6 books.
Right. Trustee Brown, did you have a question?
Yeah, I'm concerned about delaying the parents' ability to make choices. If we're not able to make a decision allowing this information to be provided to parents early enough, then we're taking away their time to make a decision regarding a particular book. So I'm concerned, while I share your same concerns about the quality of the information, I want to make sure that our parents have the time to make an appropriate decision. So I feel like 3 weeks is going to make it so that our teachers don't have the information available right at the beginning of the school year. So I would welcome someone else's comments if you feel it's different.
All right. Trustee Lopez?
Yeah, I share the same sentiment, but I also wanted to ask a question, Mr. Godot. What are the? Because I know that a lot of people might submit books for review. What are some of the guidelines to not even get us to this list, to get them on this list? Like, what has to happen? What does a book need to demonstrate to not even make it to this list? Because this is a list of what you've given us, for our recommendation, right? But I'm guessing some didn't make the cut, right?
Right. So if the committee reads the novel and feels that it's too graphic or doesn't have a specific educational purpose, then we would have that conversation within that committee, and then it just would not be included as part of the list that goes forward to the agenda.
So there's not a set criteria?
There's an information document that a teacher fills out when they're submitting the request to add a novel to the passport, and then it is just reviewed by their colleagues, and then they come back to the table and have a conversation about what was included in it. Do they feel it's grade level appropriate? If so, what grade level? And then they vote on whether or not it would be included.
Great. So just for me, given the timeline and given the fact that I do trust the input of our staff, I wouldn't want to hold back the process.
All right. Trustee West?
So just to clarify, the novels that are on here have already been vetted by a committee of language arts teachers who feel that it would be appropriate for that grade level?
That is correct.
Then I also would probably concur that I wouldn't want to hold that up. I would like the parents to be informed that there are options to opt out if they choose to do so, but I wouldn't want to hold up the ordering and the parents' ability to pre-read the selections to decide on their own.
Again, any novel that's annotated on this list, the school site must send home a letter to parents letting them know that this specific novel in this specific class or grade level is being utilized, informs them of the fact that it is annotated. There may be some concerns as a parent that you have. Please take the time to look at it and let us know if you want to opt your child out, and provides for an alternative assignment.
All right. Trustee Walker?
I think I'm in the same spot Trustee Brown is in. I understand your concerns, I do, but we're right up on the edge, and I think as a parent who's looked and debated about whether or not to pull my child in or out of a movie or a book, it's helpful to know up front so that I've got time to dig through that, because that packet that comes home is about this thick, and you have to go through like all this stuff to find these things. And I think Trustee Brown is right in the sense that if we hold back, we're limiting their ability to look and make that decision. And I've got to have some trust and faith in my parents. I hear what you're saying, but I think he put it best in the sense that there's too short a timeline, and I've got to have a little bit of faith in the staff that's done the review and some faith in the parents that are going to say, you know what, can't go here. And if they're not, they have that ability, and I think that's the best way forward, given the timeline.
Trustee Marks?
So I'm just concerned that we haven't been able to get this to us sooner. So I'm asking for next year to be able to get it
Duly
to us
noted.
sooner. Okay. So it's been coming in the spring or sometime April or May to give us the list as soon as it's approved. I understand this list was approved in May. So we need it sooner so we can at least review it, those of us who choose to review it before we vote on it. So, and just as I look at some of the content of the annotation, I know in the past I've disagreed with some of the content that it said contained sexuality or some violent sexuality, but it had a lot more in it, including child molestation and bestiality and necrophilia. And so it didn't list any of those. It just was listed as contains sexual situations. So my desire is that parents actually know what's in it, because I wouldn't have allowed my child to read that in 9th grade, that kind of content in a book. And that was approved by the teachers and through the committee. So I just appreciate that there's a process now that gives us these options for parents and that they can opt out. So I appreciate that. I just have concerns about, I want to be sure that it fits that I agree with the content of it when I vote on it. So thank you for your consideration.
All right, there's been a motion made, and yeah, there hasn't been a second yet. So is there someone that wants to second Trustee Marks's motion? All right, so the motion dies, and then Trustee Brown had a question.
I wanted to just request that this item not to be in a consent in the future, and as Ms. Marks mentioned, that we would see it earlier in the year. So I just second that.
I just want to add, I think I've read a lot of these books, and because I do have young kids, and so I read with my kids, and I'm excited to see some of these on here. The Book Thief is probably one of the best books I've read in the last 10 years. I just highly recommend it. I'm excited to see The Lord of the Rings, J.R.R. Tolkien. That's exciting, and I think that our students will be excited to read that. Willa Cather, all right. That's a point for women.
Yes.
I read that when I was in my literature courses at Cal, and so good luck on reading that. It's a little boring, but there's just some great things. So I'm excited about some of this. The annotated ones, unfortunately, those are the ones I haven't read. So so I think that we need to make sure in the future get those to us quicker. But I'm excited about some of those on some of the books on here, and I'm excited our students are going to get to read those books as well. So
I will make a positive comment about The Martian.
Yeah.
When I read that book, that was like a fabulous science book, and I have a friend who's a science teacher, taught AP and IB science in another district, and she used clips from the movie to help teach her physics and some of her math classes, the math and the chemistry and all of the things that they had to do, because that book was so, well, in the movie, explained a lot of things really well. So I appreciate that there's a classroom edition for our students so that they're going to be able to gain that excitement that I had reading that book. So it's good.
Great. All right. I'm looking for a motion for approval of this list. So it's so moved by Trustee Walker and seconded by Trustee West. All those in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
Nay. All right. So the motion passes 5-1. That takes us on to item 9, B9. So back to the regular agenda items. And that is approval of the first reading of the proposed drafts or revisions of the following board bylaws: BB 9270, conflict of interest, board bylaw 9320, meetings and notices, board bylaw 9322, agenda meeting materials, and board bylaw 9323, meeting conduct. And I'd like to turn this over to Mr. Zierli, or
yes,
thank you, to Mr. Zierli then.
As stated in the agenda item, these board bylaws are being brought to the board's attention based on a review of a recent review of our board policies and administrative regulations, and per CSBA guidelines, these particular board bylaws and revisions are brought to you as a first reading for approval.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Zierli? I have one question about now we got these off of the CSBA, and what's that called, the
Gamut online.
Okay, and so this is what's recommended by them, and so on page B923, board bylaw 9322, agenda preparation. It says any board member may request, or a member of the public may request, that a matter within the jurisdiction of the board be placed on the agenda of a regular board meeting. Okay, we have that policy. The request shall be submitted in writing. Okay, we already have that policy. We're good with that. And to the designee with supporting documents and information, so we know what they're requesting at least 1 week before the scheduled meeting date. That's my problem with it. it's like that's not doable for us. And so I don't want a board bylaw which sets up something we know we can't meet. So we have, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Mastros, don't we have like a 15 or 20 day? It's somewhere in that range.
Usually it's 10 days out. I think the policy
Okay.
that we have in place now says that it is 8 working days prior to the board meeting.
Okay, and
And
that's, that's maybe like 2 weeks, potentially.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I think that at least 1 week sets up the expectation, an expectation we can't meet. And so I would urge us to put in something that sets an expectation we can meet.
And certainly we can alter any of this to, or
Yeah.
most of it, to our district.
I would say that if we have any board member or member of the public may request a matter within the jurisdiction of the board be placed on an agenda of a regular meeting. Okay, that's correct. The next sentence, the first part's correct. And it shall be at least
8 working days, I thought was 8 working days? Will that
yeah.
work?
It needs to be longer than that because we have our board, we have to have, okay, so the meeting is on a Monday. Everything is done for the agenda. How many days prior to the meeting?
The agenda is printed the Tuesday before a Monday board meeting.
So that's 6 days before, not
But
business days.
If we did 8 working days, should be okay.
I think if
That's
we
what we
have to
do
go
now.
from the meeting date, not from when it's done, when the agenda's done, because that's the known date is the meeting date.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to go 2 to 3 weeks back from that is what my take would be.
Mm-hmm. And you're right, for 8 working days is 2 weeks.
Yeah, to 2 weeks to 3 days. But from the meeting date.
Yes.
Yeah. So
2 weeks from the meeting date, from the next board meeting date.
2 weeks before.
the scheduled meeting date.
That still seems short.
I think it still seems short. 10 working days, probably better, but I'm almost thinking 15. That's 3 weeks.
No,
15 working days gives you 3 weeks.
And I would agree in the sense that if we look historically, I think tonight's agenda item on OpenGov is the first time in the entire time I've been sitting here that I asked for an agenda item that came back the next meeting ready to go. But that's because it's in the hopper and it had been looked at. My general expectation is it's at least 1 or 2 or 3 meetings out when we request an agenda item because staff needs to prepare it. They're going to do the research. I don't think the public needs to wait that long because sometimes we're asking for bigger things. But I think 3 weeks to get everything in place. There's a lead time in sort of how you manage the agenda that I think is important for everybody's interest. Our interest, staff's interest, Chrissy's interest in putting this together and getting it run off and getting it out. And you just, from the perspective of when I or any of us ask for something, I rarely, if ever, expect to see it come back right away. My interpretation is there's work to be done, and it's going to come back, and there's a lot of wheels that have to turn.
Trustee Brown?
I want to play devil's advocate on this a little bit. I think there are going to be times that we have urgent matters that need to come to the board. And we should be looking at what is the absolute minimum time that we could deal with an emergency situation that a board member feels needs to be addressed as quickly as possible.
And part of this is you've got board members and public, and there's the may. So it just depends upon how you read this.
Mm-hmm.
I think President Newman is referring to the logistics of a board agenda item. I think you're referring to something that is
it's pressing.
That's pressing. That is not part of something that's going to be requested at the end of tonight. I think also this particular board policy is written for the logistics of it being online, because CSBA has agenda online, so it's a much quicker, faster turnaround rate. So I think the May, you're safe either way.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing that's going to stop it. Let's play again devil's advocate. Let's say you put 3 weeks on there because that's comfortable. 3 weeks for the logistics, the way that we have things. But something pressing comes up, that doesn't preclude that we can't put it on there. This doesn't mean you can't.
Trustee Marks?
So I'm going to suggest that we do 10 working days. That's 2 weeks prior to the board meeting, and that allows for some urgent items. But for a board member to request something for 2 weeks, I don't believe that's how we've practiced. We allow the superintendent to make that decision whether that's something that can be put on the next. If it is urgent, then of course we'd want it quickly. Like, oh, if we postpone that, the last vote to, then we'd want that on the next meeting. But for this, I think that's exactly, I think 10 days is, you're already working with 8 days, working days. So can we just put 10 days?
10 working days. That's probably a good
10 working
compromise.
days.
Then the next sentence would need to be changed. Items submitted less than 10 working days before the the scheduled.
Okay.
Okay. Go ahead. Yes, Trustee Brown.
Okay, reference page B928. The last paragraph has an extra word, but I don't know what the true meaning should be.
What paragraph?
The last paragraph, the last sentence, where it says, in addition, whenever any provision of the Ed Code requires unanimous action of all or a specific number of members, the vacant positions shall be, not be, and I don't know what it means.
Exclude 1B. Exclude the B at the end of the line.
Which
I had
not
marked that out.
be.
Yeah, well, yeah. Shall
Which
not
B do we exclude?
The first one.
The first one.
The first
Okay.
one.
So that needs to be clarified.
Yes. Yes.
All right. And
I'll
then
triple check that wording
Yeah.
tomorrow on
Okay.
Gamut to make sure. Yes,
Yeah, and they might-
typo on my part.
And then there was another on page B10 too. I think.
we haven't gotten to that item yet.
Okay.
Yeah, we're on
So
that now.
we'll wait.
Yeah. We're just on B9 right now. So, Trustee Marks?
I had one on B924 at the bottom of it. It's on the at least 3 days before each regular meeting. Should it be 3 working days
Which,
before each regular?
I'm sorry, which-
B9, the last paragraph, sorry, the last paragraph right under agenda dissemination to board members. B924, the first line, at least 3 days, it says at least, should it be 3 working days?
That's what our practice is.
Is that good?
Yes, because you get it on Wednesday.
Yes, that's what,
Sure.
I figured it was, that's what it was, yes.
All right. And then I had just a point to make. Public participation.
Page.
It's on page B929. Basically this says here that we can't do anything to inhibit public participation. Persons attending board meetings shall not be requested to sign in, complete a questionnaire, otherwise provide their name or other information as a condition of attending the meeting. We don't do that, but we do ask, in order to serve the public better, we do ask for people that comment in so we can follow up with things.
Right.
So I just want to make sure our comment card as a follow-up is compliant.
Right.
We can't require people to fill out the comment card, but the comment card allows us to better serve the public.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, that knowing how to get in touch with them. So, you know, it can't be a condition of getting up to speak that we feel make them do that, I don't think. So, we can't put any, you know, we can't, this is saying we can't inhibit public participation. So I think we'll need to make sure our comment card is compliant, the two connect in a good way. I think I like this section, but.
Right. So you're asking anything on that?
No,
about the
no
cards?
changes. I
can
just
still
want to
do-
make sure that
Okay, our
we
cards are
follow
okay.
up, because we have to, the board code has to be, and the comment card needs to be copacetic.
Does that mean like a Roman look at it thing, so to see if?
No, probably not.
I'm just trying to understand, because I understand what you're getting after, but.
Yeah,
Who
I just
gives
want to
us-
make sure that we aren't, that our comment card doesn't undo what this is saying, which
Got
is
it.
we can't inhibit public participation. Trustee Marks.
So when I read that paragraph before, I was believing that the second sentence has to do with it's so as not to inhibit public participation, persons attending board meetings shall not be requested to sign in. So to me, that was people who attend don't have to fill anything out. But those who come to speak, it's really helpful, as you said, to have them fill out a request card so we actually know how many, so you know how long the time is going to go, and whoever's running the meeting, the chair knows that. And then if you want to contact them, they have information that's available. But I was believing that had to do with the people just attending the meeting to view the meeting, not necessarily to speak at the meeting. So that's how I read that. I don't know if that's how it's meant to be, but that's how I read it. But I believe that you're correct in asking to make sure that what we're doing is compliant with the law.
Yeah, with the comment card. So. All right. Any more comments on this, or any questions or comments on this code section? All right. It's approval of first reading. So I'm looking for a motion with the changes we have suggested. I'm looking for a motion, the 10-day change.
So moved.
And then the few little typographical changes. So it's been moved by Trustee Walker and seconded by Trustee Mark. So all those in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Then the first reading is approved. That takes us to item B10, approval of the first reading of the proposed draft of board policy and review of administrative regulation 3230, federal grant funds, first reading of proposed revisions to board policy 3470, debt issuance, deletion of current board policy, and administrative regulation 3470, accounts receivable. And again, this matter would be turned over to Mr. Zierli.
Thank you. And again, these are board policies now. The last section was board bylaws. And again, these were noted as being either mandated or conditionally mandated by the CSBA review of our current board policies. And in front of you, you have CSBA recommended language for board policy and administrative regulation 3230 for federal grant funds. We do receive federal grant funds, so to comply with receipt of those funds, we are required to have this particular board policy. And then board policy 3470 for debt issuance. As you recall at the last meeting, we are considering bringing forth a proposal to issue debt for a solar project or energy conservation project. In order to do so, we have to have a board policy to issue debt. Our current board policy 3470 is titled Accounts Receivable. So we're asking to delete that current language and replace it with the CSBA guidelines for debt issuance, board policy 3470. The accounts receivable language that currently exists, that will be folded into another business guidelines board policy that we bring back in the future. It's not a mandate. It's not a conditional mandate. So if it's something that the board prefers to have, we will fold that back into another board policy in the 3000 area for business practice or guidelines.
Great. Are there any comments or suggested changes or questions from the board? Trustee Brown.
Yeah. Page B10-2.
Oh, is it allowability?
Yeah, allowability. I'm trying to figure out if that's a one word or is that two words.
I circled it.
Oh, I forgot to do spell check on my phone. I was gonna see. See if it's,
Allowability on number 7.
yes. Let's see what it
I
is.
don't know. We'll have to check on that. Someone can look that up.
That
The allowability.
Oh, it separates it when you do it on your phone.
I have a hunch it's 2 words. All right. Any more questions or anything? All right. Let's go to the public. Are there any comments or questions on this board bylaw? All right. Seeing none, then it comes back to the board. Are there any more comments or questions on this? Trustee Walker?
Just to say thank you for continuing to bring back a flow of board policy updates. Asking for it. I look forward when we get to the 6,000s. I know they're coming soon. They're out there. But no, I do appreciate all the work everybody's putting forward on this, because we've done this a steady stream now. And I think it certainly gives me a lot of confidence that we're updating this manual so that we understand what the rule book is. And it's important, and I know everybody's putting in time and effort, and it's tedious, and it's not very glamorous, but it's important, and I do appreciate all the work.
All right. Are there any more comments or questions on this section? All right. I'm looking for approval of the first reading.
So moved.
It's been moved by Trustee Brown and seconded by Trustee Lopez. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It passes unanimously.
Let's vote. Is it a 1 word or 2 word?
It says it.
We're looking it up.
I found that it goes both ways on my phone, so, yeah.
I'd say whatever way Gamma does it.
Yeah.
All right. This
So-
takes us to item B11.
Ask a question, not related to these two, but do we have any kind of a timeline, knowing how many board policies we're going to need to look at? So is this something that's going to take us 2 or 3 years to get through, or?
Yes.
When you say a lot.
You have a lot. You know, part of my notes here, I just said, you know, I'd like to see a timeline for the number of board policies that they're asking to be revised. So we'll bring that back to you. We'll put that in a Friday update, either this Friday or next Friday, to be able to give you at least a scope of where we're going and when we're getting to the 6,000s and what that'll
Yeah,
take.
I've been through this process before, and we've looked at binders upon binders. And
if I may, and I don't know if Dr. Noguchi has seen the report or not. We tried to target the mandate, the ones that are mandates or conditional mandates. Those are the ones that we took as a priority. I know Mr. Herbst brought a number of them before the end of the school year related to special education services that were mandated for special education services. So those are the ones we're targeting right away, and not to bring forth a whole bunch at one time, but we can definitely work with Dr. Noguchi and look at those and then have a timeline for bringing forth the others.
All right, this takes us to item B11, which is ratification of services agreement with the Center for Human Services to provide a student assistance specialist program and general education counseling services for the 2018-19 school year. Dr. Noguchi.
And I'm going to hand it over to Mark Hurst.
Thank you very much. Modesto City Schools has a long-standing partnership with the Center for Human Services. Tonight's board agenda item seeks approval for a services agreement which provides much-needed support to our school sites. All of these services are listed as actions in the 2018-2019 Local Control Accountability Plan approved by the board at the June 25th meeting. Center for Human Services provides the Student Assistance Specialist program that we heard a lot about tonight at all 34 of our school sites. Student Assistance Specialists are trained personnel who work directly with students who have social-emotional challenges that impede their learning. These individuals work with site administration to address the needs of targeted students through a variety of different intervention methodologies. Additionally, the Center for Human Services provides mental health clinicians to targeted school sites. These clinicians work primarily under what's called a behavioral consultation model. The model is a proactive approach to addressing early onset of potential mental health related illnesses/issues. Clinicians serve a small caseload of students but spend the majority of their time working with families and teachers in meeting the needs of our most at risk. This year, our local control and accountability plan increased counseling support by an additional 2 clinicians. In summary, the board agenda item with the Center for Human Services has a services agreement that will provide the district the following: student assistance specialists at all 34 sites and at all high school and junior high school intervention centers, and mental health clinicians at targeted school sites. It's recommended that the board approve the 2018-2019 services agreement with the center, and both myself and actually Taryn Moralt from the center is out there in the audience as well. So if you guys have any questions.
Thank you. All right, are there any questions for Mr. Herbst? I'm not seeing any lights. All right, let's go to the audience for any comments or questions. I'm not seeing any takers. All right, let's come back up for comments and a motion. Trustee Walker.
I'm going to say thank you a lot tonight. I think this goes back to, again, what we talked about earlier in the relationship with Center for Human Services, our commitment to the students, our commitment to a comprehensive program at every one of our sites. And I still believe why we haven't been asked to present at a conference, because we are ahead of most folks up and down the state when I'm at meetings. They wish they were doing and had the processes in place we have, and we should be holding it up more often. Well done, and I'll move approval.
All right, so we have a motion for approval by Trustee Walker, and I'm seeing a number of lights. So Trustee Marks.
I just want to thank Center for Human Services for all that they do for our students for many years, and just the support that they give. And then just to comment about how CSBA doesn't ask us to present, we submit proposals to do that. So we can do that. All right.
Trustee Brown.
So the numbers that I see here are astounding to see how much aid is being provided. And I wrote questions to myself when I saw that there were 215 days per week. I thought, I'd like to find that week. But when you realize how many kids are being served and how often and how much is needed, we got to be grateful for this service, and we can't provide that with our own staff. So great that we have another agency that can step in and help us.
No, and honestly, it's been a priority of our local of the LCAP committee since day one. I mean, it really has been. So I do, and I believe with what you and Trustee Walker had said, we provide a great deal of support to our kids that are in need. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. So very, very grateful for that. I think it obviously benefits our kids.
Great. Trustee West.
What pleases me the most is the prevention offered in our elementary sites, because working as a counselor, I've seen that if you do have that proactive preventative piece in elementary school, you don't see the problems that you would experience in the middle schools and the high schools. So I really want to stress, I hope we have even more of that as time goes on, because I think that's key, is working with these kids when they're young and when the problems are small. Thank you.
All right, I'm looking, I think we had a motion by Trustee Walker, so I'm looking for a second. Trustee Adolfo wants to second it, so the motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, state aye. Aye. Then the motion passes unanimously. This takes us on to item B12, which is report of meetings attended by Board of Education members. I'm looking for lights. Trustee Walker first.
Okay, I did a Leadership Institute conference in San Francisco. Actually, before Mike walks out, I got the STEM thing going because I did a STEM conference. There were 2 positive and 1 sort of negative, but out the STEM conference was highly informative about what other districts were doing around the state, different priorities. They broke things out into grade spans. It was highly useful. It was a nice chart. I'm going to get all the notes sent over to me from the professor from Cal State East Bay and sort of look at what we can do, because the county here is missing a piece that other counties have as far as regional outreach. But it was because they have San Joaquin has one, Fresno has one, but there's nothing in Stanislaus or Merced. And so we're sort of on an island, but I got a lot of good ideas. The other conference I attended was computer science. That was very well attended. I actually was at a table with somebody who's on the committee. Those standards are coming out in August, September of this year. Again, it'll be great bandwidth. There's concern about implementation, but what's interesting is Mr. Johnson over at Enox has been talking to me off and on for a year about his program. He's spot on with his observations and looking to expand the program here, and I'll begin those conversations. Those were the 2 good sessions. The 3rd session on math misplacement didn't go well, but it was very interesting to see where CSBA took their position, because it was about a Senate bill that says we're required to do placement on math and how we do it. They covered that briefly, and then pivoted to a model that says, instead of figuring out math placement, we'll just not let anybody accelerate, which was a spot-on no for me. And they used a model from San Francisco where they did the wrong thing and said every student will go into 8th grade algebra, which they ended up resulting in massive failure. I could have said that. They reacted by saying nobody goes into algebra. And they appear to be making that position. But I think all things being equal, it was a great conference. There were lots of good people there. The STEM and the computer science sessions were very informative. Mathematics placement was informative in its own way. And I took migraine head medicine right after they finished talking. But it was a good conference, and I think it was interesting to see a smaller group thing where CSBA is normally thousands of people. This wasn't as many. And so it was a much smaller session that let you interact with people, and it was well worth the time. And I've got lots of good notes.
Trustee Marks.
I just have 2 items. Friday, I attended the Latino Emergency Council meeting. Mr. Luis Molina, the former Mayor of Patterson, but he works for the mental health for the county. He did he wanted to let us know about the training that's available, or let the committee know about training that's available for suicide and suicide prevention, but to help people understand better about just some of the mental health issues that are in our community, and to be aware of them and talk about them so that people, students and others, feel more comfortable at least expressing needs. And then I also was invited by Pastor Crosby to attend the Modesto Police Department Clergy Council and introduce Mr. Irvin to the Clergy Council. So I was able to do that last week, and they're really looking forward to meeting you as well. It's a really great group of people, and 4 times a year they have a large meeting at the police department, and usually they meet at the King Kennedy Collaborative Center. And so this was a really good one. So it was nice to be able to introduce him. Yeah.
Good. Trustee Brown.
I'm going to learn what I'm able to say, but I will let you know that I have had numerous meetings throughout the community related to the bond. We have a very strong committee that's formed, and pleased to report that we did file the bond arguments today, so we're on schedule for that.
All right. Anyone else? All right. See none. That takes us on to the last item on the agenda, which is other matters. Any agenda request items? And I see that Dr. Noguchi has placed new agenda request items into our binders, so there's a little different form. So please look at that. And are there any items to be placed on future agendas? All right. Seeing none, then I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
I move adjournment.
All right, the motion's been made by Trustee Marks and seconded by Trustee Walker. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.